I'm just absolutely thrilled to have some time together. What an amazing opportunity and a privilege.
Good. I'm, you know why I wanted to follow up and meet with you is because your article was so accurate. Because, people can write things about you, and most of the time it's like 50%. And you managed to, I don't know, you did your research or something, but somehow you were able to get into my character as well. And I thought it's the best thing that I've seen, period. So I'm yours. Let's talk about whatever you want.
Right on. I got some tea water boiling. I'm gonna bring that in here in a second. I'm so grateful that you could take the time. It looks like you got to your office so that we can have better connectivity.
Well, it's a little, it's no, it's the same crappy
Oh,
connectivity. So, but I'm using a better computer than I usually do to teach and whatnot. I'm glad I'm getting better receptivity because they hit that fiber line in Taos and everybody's bad. We even went to the library and the speeds were still slow there. So, I'm glad it's not just me. All right, I'm gonna pour a little more hot in my tea.
yeah, take your time, man.
Finally, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, get me up. Oh, finally. Okay, fine. There we are. I'm so sorry. It wouldn't let me back in. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get shut out for good. Okay. It looks like the internet's cooperating. So let's do let's do whatever we need to do.
Sounds good, man. I just want to show you my fit for today. Lone Wolf and Cub in honor of you being a Ronin. All right.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. I like
Um,
that.
you probably don't know the story, but it's about a samurai who got framed. And so he just went against everything and took his kid with him on the road and became a hired assassin.
Oh,
Right.
nice, nice. I like that. Is there somewhere? Is it what's the title of it again in case I want to look it up and read it?
Yeah, it's Lone Wolf and Cub. It's a manga. One of my favorite stories.
Is it
You know,
based on on a real samurai who did this?
it's unclear. It seems to steal a little bit from Musashi's life.
Who's
And
Musashi?
so Musashi is probably the single most famous samurai. Um, when I was in my 20s, I read a book, a novel about his life, and it deeply influenced me. Uh, I studied martial arts and was fascinated with Japanese culture for a long time, still am. That book actually resulted in me beginning to study Zen meditation.
I was impressed. I read a just out of my own interest because it has nothing to do with my field. When I was a grad student, I thought I'm going to read something about the samurai. And when I found out their poetry skills, I was like, oh, wow, this is a little bit more sophisticated. And so the, I'm sure this famous samurai was an author of some kind of haiku or something, or maybe involved. Is that a big factor in the manga? Like, do they try to go all historical on you with it, or
Mm,
is it more fictional?
it's a little bit of both. Musashi, I think, is famous for having written the Book of Five Rings. So he did write. He started out as kind of a barbarian, right? He was a coward and sort of an idiot, and he became one of the most amazing swordsmen ever lived. Um, though it's not my goal to explore the samurai heritage today. I just wanted you to know that I recognize something in your way of life. Right?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's a freedom. Was this Were these samurai free? I think they were when they became Ronin, although there was such shame attached to it. So I kind of felt that when somebody told me that, they said, "You're really Ronin." right? Yeah, I think it is there. Let's hope I know how to use that sword, right? That's all that matters. Right. Okay, let me shut up and let you ask some questions or discuss whatever format you want. Let's go for it.
Yeah, so I want this to be a conversation. So I want you to feel free to ask questions or, delve into anything and
Good.
that comes to you. Love your t-shirt there. That's amazing. The two
Yeah.
snake chariot, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
Medea's dragon chariot, right?
right on. I have an old vintage Cloisonne pin with that image on it that I found during the time that the angel, quote unquote, was with my mind. And that was like a 9-month period in 2002. So that's where I learned, that's where I got my education, right? About the gods, origin, magic, all these things. I was in a school, for 9 months with something, I don't know exactly what it was. I refer to it as an angel.
A source of inspiration is that?
Yeah, that'd be putting it mildly. It was
Yeah.
like being dead while I was alive.
Oh, that must give you a fantastic vantage. I mean, you're at a vantage point where you can see things if you're in that zone. 9 months. Jesus,
Yeah.
what did you learn?
Oh my God. Enough for 1,000 lifetimes. I mean, it changed everything that I thought about everything.
Really,
It,
did
it's
it? It
part of
totally.
it's part of what I recognized in you, right? You can recognize the fingerprint of either the dead or the gods in another
Yeah,
person's mind and thought, right? You
yeah.
can sense it.
The muse, the muse. You
Yes.
can smell her perfume. It's very nice.
So I just want to take a moment and thank you for the amazing work you do. You're educating so many people. You're teaching ancient Greek. Just that by itself, if you were just teaching the ancient languages, that would be an amazing service to the people. And you do it for free. You're not trying to make money.
Yeah, no, I do have a paid dojo though. I have students that pay me hourly to
Yeah,
teach them Greek,
right
right?
on.
Not connected with Lady Babylon, but I
Mm-hmm.
have to earn as you know, as somebody with a satanic contract, I have to earn my own way.
Mm.
So it's part of I don't know, it's the physics of everything. But yeah, no, I want that to be clear. I teach for cash,
Yeah,
right?
right on.
But Lady Babylon can't be a part of that. I don't want to anything I say to ever be yoked to some kind of profit potential or some crap like that. You know what I mean?
I do. My own work's very similar, right? The work that I do, which is my soul work, that's not a money making thing. It has to be free of that binding, right?
Yeah. Yep.
'Cause otherwise, how are you going to be truthful,
Right.
right? You're gonna have to worry about interfering with your livelihood every time you open your mouth.
Yes.
And so another thing that I want to mention here. So first of all, thank you for the work you do. It's amazing. I respect you as a teacher and someone who's instructing the new generations. That's awesome. Also
Thank you.
appreciate the fact that you don't allow advertising on your YouTube channel so we can watch you uninterrupted.
Correct.
I also can't
Correct.
imagine how you've managed to evade YouTube bans because your content is about as provocative as it could possibly be. And yet somehow they don't take that shit down.
Look, somebody explained it to me once that not and when I heard this, I was just as amazed as you will be. For those of us who don't monetize when we can, and it is not many,
No.
I can promise you.
Yeah, I'm
It
one of
is
them.
it is not me. Okay. When we don't monetize, somebody explained to me that that keeps us off the algorithm that's searching for a reason to kick you off.
Mm,
So, people have tried in the past, over the last 2 years, people have tried numerous times to like report you for content, right? Some kind of violation of content rules.
mhm,
And what I would every time we do, we appeal and we win,
mm.
right? So, we're following. Chewy is following very closely the things that we can and can't do. And I think between that and the fact that we're not monetized, I don't think we're getting the same scrutiny that
Mm.
we would if we were bent over and somebody were advertising up our backside. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, 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 right. Yeah, if we were taking it from the posterior position, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I did for the first time a couple weeks ago, I interviewed, a Russian scholar, and we spoke briefly about topics related to, the poisoning of food, and they took that shit off instantly. They were just like, "Nope, you can't say anything about medicine." Right? Nothing. So that
Wow. Seriously?
Yeah, and I'm not monetized. So that's the only thing that I've ever had that I got my first strike. I have 400 videos, right? And I talk about all kinds of crazy shit, but that
Okay.
was my first strike.
Just for talking about, wow.
And by the way, so I want to be clear, this video probably won't go on YouTube to protect me from getting a mark. So I want you to feel absolutely absolutely candid, right? We can say I want you to just be completely whatever you're feeling, whatever you want to say. No
Okay.
censorship. No
I don't
censorship.
have to worry about F bombs or anything like
No,
that.
nothing.
Perhaps, there's something more to what you're saying about why Lady Babylon is staying up and not
Mhm.
getting taken down, seemingly defying the odds. Maybe it's not so much to do with the algorithm because we're not advertising, and we're not drawing that attention.
Mhm.
Maybe it's something. Wow, maybe it's something different. If you figure out what it is, let me know, because we've tried to stay within utter bounds of purity. Yet we can very clinically talk about texts that say the most, I don't know,
Provocative.
provocative, disturbing, provocative.
Mhm.
You know, you could say it's a miracle that we've been able to stay active. And I am grateful for that. I'm
Me
grateful
too.
for that.
It certainly occurs to me that the intelligences and the beings whom you invoke and whom you are, in a sense, the human voice of,
Yeah.
may have a say in such matters.
Oh, isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
isn't that absolutely
fantastic.
gorgeous?
Yeah, gorgeous.
It is. It is. Oh God, I love it. I
Okay,
love it.
so
I love the discoveries, all the discoveries with the best jar. The timing was absolutely impeccable. They found a drug with vaginal excretions and body fluids in it.
Mhm.
Right? One of these
Right.
compound drugs. Who has been yelling about that? Who has been yelling about that? It's the guy who says he talks to the Muse,
Yeah, one guy.
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Right.
Fantastic. Right? Same
Mhm.
channel. Oh, I love it. I love it. So
And just to
good
to
for
get
us.
something, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Just to
no, go
get
ahead.
one other thing out of the way,
Mm.
we gotta sing Chewy's praises. My God, like,
Yeah.
absolute support, gives you a
Yeah.
whole other dimension of your
Yeah.
presentation, takes
Yeah.
care of the tech. I mean, wild
Yeah.
hand of applause for Chewy.
Yeah. Oh, are you kidding? She knows that too. She knows it. So, you'll probably hear her in this, Danny. She was in the background doing like documentary type stuff, which, by the way, Chewy, we can release that now. Now that he's released, we can put that up as footage. It may be fun. I don't know. People may want to see it, maybe not, but yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah, just
fantastic.
so much respect and appreciation for Chewy, and everything she contributes to the work, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
beautiful, so powerful.
Yeah. It
Um,
is. It is. And she flies that line, she threads that needle perfectly. Because she doesn't put stuff up there that's going to get us kicked off.
mm,
Right. And yet it has to cover material that is that depth of darkness, and she's able to summon it, you know what I mean, without um in a very kind of genteel sort of artistic way. So it doesn't come out as pornographic, you know what I mean, it comes out as
yeah.
almost documentary like. And I think that's why you need that virgin oracle. You know what I mean? You need that vision. I don't know. I don't know. And it's a good thing she knows how to run everything, because all I know is to stick this thing in my face. That's all I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you've been provided with not merely an assistant, but a co-pilot
Yeah.
of incredible depth, insight, creative ability. So I just want to absolutely praise that, and acknowledge and respect her profound contribution to the work. Yeah.
She is listening, and I need you to also understand that she has one motive for to know. I'm going to say it because people want to know. She
Yeah.
has one motive for doing this entire thing, and that is to get the attention of Henry Cavill. And that is such a powerful driving motivation. I congratulate her for that, and I hope someday that he walks in, and we have some kind of um universal reward. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm doing it, because she's holding me prisoner. No, I'm just kidding.
And you love it. I know
Yeah, I
you.
do.
You
I
want to
do.
be held prisoner.
A
This
willing
place.
prisoner.
So, okay, side question. That crop that you use off camera,
Yes,
whack, whack, whack. Is that the crop from Medea?
it is.
I
It
thought
is.
so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
it
so.
is. How did you know that? Were
Yeah,
you
I'm a tricky fucker. I'm a detective.
really? Oh my God, that's amazing. I didn't know, because I didn't think I said that lately. But yeah, that's the one from the play.
So it's
Yeah,
got a very special significance.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. I jumped onto stage with it when we're the administrator came in, told us they had raided the props, right?
Right.
They had raided the prop department.
Because they
Students
didn't
were
like the
pissed.
fastenim. The fastenim
Right,
was a
right.
problem.
Exactly. And people were so pissed off. Those students wanted that man torn to pieces for what they were doing. So that was the whip that um it's kind of a symbol of the freedom of the stage. And people got it. Those students picked it up like that. It's like an ancient practice that you just offer the people, and it's like it's natural or something. But yeah, yeah, I was whipped with it. That was one of the issues. That
Hmm.
was in the deposition.
I read
How
that.
Yeah, dude, isn't that funny? It's like they wanted to know, well, how many times were you hit? You know, what kind it's like they're really into it, they're grooving on it. And then the thing that people don't realize, maybe they do if they've got the full deposition because it's all there, but they had a whole catalog of whips and dildos that they had pulled off the internet, that because somebody had run an article that I was in on the site, they thought I was like some kind of dildo purveyor, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I read that. And they were trying to get you to explain the meaning of BDSM, and you had no idea what that meant, and they couldn't believe that you didn't know that. They clearly knew what BDSM meant, and they're just like in the Inquisition, they're interrogating you, and you're like, bondage, sex. I don't know what those other letters mean. Like the bondage part, I know, but the other stuff, I have no idea, bruh. Like what? But you guys seem to know all about this. I mean, it's kind of ironic, right? The Inquisitors know what this four-letter, acronym means, but the defendant does not know, right?
They they were total perverts, man. They were total perverts. I thought I was gonna have to take off my clothes. I thought I was gonna have to take off my clothes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, dude, this guy's really interested. I even talked with my attorney afterwards. Right? What's the dude wanted to get me naked? Number one. And thinks that I have some kind of cult that's going to involve these Catholic virgins. Oh God, it was these people they had some dirty, dirty stuff in their minds.
Yeah, they did. No, and I felt sorrow for you being subjected to that kind of idiotic inquisition, and them like refusing to call you Dr. Hillman, right? You would say,
Yeah.
like, would you please refer to me as Dr. Hillman? And they'd be like, yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Hillman, we
Right.
will. Right.
Yeah. It was demeaning, the whole
Yeah.
thing, but that's part of it. My lawyer said they're going to do that to you just to get you to explode or, to give them something that's bad.
Right.
Right. So I kind of saw that stuff coming. But when he asked me the final time that I answered, are you the God Pan? I was honestly sitting there like it was the most surreal moment of my life. I thought, what did he just say what I think he said? And he did. And I was trying to sit there. I was sitting there as my lawyer was objecting. I was sitting there trying to figure out what is in the mind of this cruel pervert. You know? it was it was exactly a Bacchic mirror, right?
Yeah.
I could look into this image and see the reality that was the interrogator. And I realized, oh God, that's that Pentheus. That's why they're reflecting all the Bacchic religion does is reflect back to the individual who they actually are. Right? Which the guy is projecting. It was perverse. It was perverse.
Yeah.
It had a slight sting of masochism to it. And the fact that they had that whole catalog stuff, none of that's mine. Do I sell that? Do I have anything to do with it? No, it has nothing to do with me. And you could tell that they knew it. And they leaked all of my personal information. They took all of my personal file and made it public. And my attorney said that it's intimidation is what it is. And the whole time there's nothing that I can do because who the hell am I? I got no money, right? I can't influence the judge, right? So we were in an uphill battle, but it was a worthy fight.
I remember when it finally occurred to me, I've grown up in America. I haven't really been to other countries. I haven't traveled much, really not at all. And I remember the day it occurred to me that the idea of rights was kind of ridiculous because you only have the rights that you can afford to defend. And for many of us, that's none. Right. So the idea that we have rights is a sort of a legal fiction, right? You have
Brilliantly said. Brilliantly said.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And something that we share, and which I recognized in you right away when I first heard you speaking on Danny Jones's original podcast, we have an ache in our soul for justice. Not justice as vengeance, justice as the restoration of something profound and actually intelligent.
Yeah, beautiful. Something beautiful, right? And putting that back where it belongs. Oh God, totally. Pagans, man. We're pagans, I think.
Yeah. All right. So I do have a ton of questions, and I've got curiosity about a whole range of stuff. I did do a lot of research on you, but it wasn't really research, right? It's like fascination. I recognize something in you that's familiar from my own experience. And one of the things I recognize is that throughout life, you know, we are subjected to situations that are painful and that hurt us, and they hurt our capacity to be professionals in the world, or they may destroy that capacity.
Yeah.
And these are like experiences of death, right? Part of us dies in that process.
Huh.
And then if we're lucky, on the other side of that death, there's a resurrection, right? And we
Well
come
said.
into life in a new way, right? With a new mind and a new purpose and a new spirit. And obviously you've been through a few of these deaths. I mean, from what I understand, you were raised a Christian. Have I got this wrong?
Yes, no, absolutely. I would say Baptist
Okay.
before I would say Christian, but yeah, love Jesus, man. Totally part of it.
Yeah.
Totally part of it. Yeah, definitely.
So was there a sort of a juncture at which there was a profound schism there? Talk about that process for me. Say whatever comes to mind. What's in your
Yes.
heart about it?
And I just said it on Danny Jones too. I just said it on Danny Jones. I was reading Aristotle and seeing the beautiful complexity of nature. Oh God. And exactly what that purposeful hand of the muse is. You see, they said cosmos was the organization that is everything. And that cosmos is really a way for you to interact with the divine.
Yes.
That it's a means of pulling out of the person what is that corruption. And you know, those guys are sitting around like Pythagoras saying, oh, this is every 3,000 years. How the hell did they come up with that? I don't know, in that aspect. But I was reading Aristotle with all of this in mind, and I suddenly realized, I was 21, and I suddenly realized, you know what? They were right, that nature, she is gorgeous.
Mhm.
And it clicked in my head. And I put my Aristotle down. I put on some nice clothes with some cheap cologne. And I was a virgin. And why was I a virgin? Because Jesus was watching me. He used to watch me. He used to watch me do things and imagine. You know, I was so susceptible to the beauty from the very beginning. To suppress it in my Christian virginity was so incredible that on that night, reading Aristotle, I drove to a bar and I picked out a woman and I said, hi, this is my situation and I'd like to be done with my virginity. Are you up for a go? And proceeded to start my pathway of learning what is that nature and that beauty, and what is it about Christianity that wants to kill that, to snuff that out, and to take that component of what is the cosmos, the organization of the universe. Why do they want to stifle that? So it's almost like it was a religious thing for me that involved self-awareness, and that was coming through that, God, that beautiful Uranian queen. You know what I mean? Aphrodite was also called Urania, and because she's the product of Uranos, right?
Mhm.
And that component of ancient mystery was what the monists first cut out. And I think they did so because that is it's like a battery or some kind of powering for the individual to for them to see a beauty put back where it's supposed to be. And yeah, and that was my moment. So if you can say it, I totally understand why it is that people associate sexuality with sin and temptation and the devil. Because in the pagan way of thinking, nature is what we worship, right? Makes sense, right? So nature doesn't do things that are not beautiful. And for us to see her put together the world through this act of coitus, perhaps the coitus is a religious experience. And I mean, imagine that. Imagine people that think coitus is a religious experience, because everybody says, oh, those idolaters, those pagans, they were, what they were doing? There was sex stuff, prostitution going on. That's because they looked at sex and the act of orgasming as a heightened state of awareness. If you want to call it spiritual, go ahead. Right. I don't understand the physics myself, but right. Isis and Osiris, the stuff was catchy. It's not like there was only one group of people that was doing this. Right. So why is she carrying the phallus around? Right. It's because you're within a culture that has stifled that vision of Aphrodite. And that's all the Bacchic mysteries did, was bring the person to Aphrodite. So, oh God, how can you let that stuff go? I don't know. We got to bring this stuff back, let people know. So that's where I escaped Christianity. And I told Danny that too. Yeah. A Muse liberated me.
Beautiful. Gorgeous. Oh, love it. So, I had my own walk. I started out as an atheist. And then I became interested in magic for a time in my teens. Late teens, I was exposed to Crowley. Not a fan of Crowley, by the way. But that was my first.
Why is that? Why is that? Did you discover that he was a kook or something?
It's a complicated thing. The simple answer is I knew these two young German guys that were Christians, right? They had to go to a fundamentalist church every day, but they were secretly practicing, the rites of the OTO and stuff. And they couldn't have Crowley's book sent to their house, so they had the Book of the Law sent to my house. And I remember I was fascinated to receive that thing. I was like, "What the hell is this?" Right? I'm hyperlexic. I've been a reader since I was a little kid. Books have been my education, not school. I've never been to high school, for example. And that book came, and I paged through it a bit, and then I was feeling into the ethos of that thing, right? And I got in the shower, and I had a vision, and the vision was that there was a giant wasp outside the shower, like a monster, kind of. And this is one of the things that terrifies me, because I got stung when I was a young kid and it nearly killed me. It wasn't allergies, just got sepsis, right? And I love insects. I'm fascinated by insects my entire life, but the wasps scare me. And I just saw this sort of image of this wasp hovering outside the shower. And it was one of the first non-ordinary experiences that I had while I was awake, right? It was a vision, right? It was there. I could sense it. And I just got the feeling in a very deep way in my heart, this path is not for you. Do not take this path. Your path lies elsewhere, right? That kind of thing. So after that, I stopped studying Crowley, although it's clear he was an incredible scholar of magical tradition and practice. There's no doubt of that. He's kind of a shitty writer. Wrote thousands.
I've absolutely never read a word, but he wrote a novel that came across my way, Cocaine Diaries, I think it is.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing I've been exposed to. I didn't read that sacred book or anything. So how did it strike you? Like, you said you mentioned Jung, didn't you?
I haven't mentioned Jung.
Okay.
I'm somewhat somewhat aware of Jung's work.
Have you read any of the Red Book?
Yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
Red Book is an astonishing, non-ordinary thing,
Yeah.
right? Full on.
How would you compare the Red Book with Crowley? Because I haven't read any of him.
Okay, so, you know, one of the okay, so there are some, let's just be clear, there are some traps about being human, right? There's a difference between virtue and vice. And you can engage in sex in a way that is spiritual and religious, and you can engage in sex in a way that lowers your soul down, I think, or demeans other people or demeans yourself. What do you think?
Now, okay, wait a minute. What if your job is to demean? What if the perspective is this is hell and you are a punisher? And if that means demeaning, then we require demeaning to wash away your corruption.
That's
Right?
an interesting perspective. I get it, right? Obviously, I don't necessarily think that human existence is heaven or hell.
Yeah.
What it is it's the entire continuum of the possibility space of incarnation. There's hell in there, there's heaven in there, there's theater, there's play, there's disaster, there's tragedy, there's horror, right? It's all part of that continuum.
Yeah.
And perhaps as humans, one of the aspects of our agency as incarnate beings is to instruct that possibility space. What are your thoughts?
To instruct it. I find that fascinating, but I have to think about it. To instruct it. If you mean that I get to spank someone, I'm going for it. You know what I mean?
Well,
if you want real instruction, I think it has to do with ultimately the power of the eremon, that wilderness where the mind goes under the influence, under the visionary influence, right? Into that place where the devil becomes the tempter. I think the whole purpose is to find that perfect existence, that purified. I think that's why the mysteries are always focused on purification. What is this initiation going to do? It's going to purify you. What the hell? I mean, I'm still going to work next week, right? What do you mean it's going to purify me? I think the purpose of the mystery is to bring that individual into association with that creative voice. And I think that creative voice of necessity must be just. And that's why joining up with Lucifer means you get to fuck ass. Right? Right? You get to bring people exactly the hypocrisy that they are and show it to them in the mirror. Say, this is you. You know why? It's because I am the god of the dead, right? Dionysus, Hades, right? The devil. Right? I think that's the power. I think it's necessary. It's not like I have no moral problem with talking to somebody who loves Jesus Christ and telling them awful things about Jesus Christ. Why? Because they need to hear it. If they're going to be purified, yes, it'll be painful. Demeter is holding Demophon, the little kid, over the fire, just like Thetis is holding Achilles over the fire, fumigating his little ass. right? And it's painful. It's burning his eyes and everything. It's painful. So everybody comes to the defense of the little kid. Bullshit. You know what I was doing? I was burning off his mortality. You can have him back. Now he'll be half as smart. Yeah. Gorgeous. I mean, there's a reality in it that must be satanic or Saturnian. We have to continue with the contract. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Fallen angel, sexy stuff. What do you think about the Bible? What's your take on the Bible stuff?
So, I was reading novels by the time I was 5. And I was, as I mentioned, hyperlexic. So I had an easy grasp of language. And I got to tell you that the only book that I ever encountered that I couldn't make any sense out of at all was the Bible. I was just like, what the actual fuck is this? This cannot be. This is the primary book of the people all over the world? This? Really?
Did that drive your atheism or
No, not really. The thing that drove my atheism was the idea of a kind of cruel, punishing, surveilling God, right? And also, let's be really clear about something very simple. By the time you have to give people laws and rules, they are no longer human. They're just not being human. If you got to write that shit down and make commandments about don't kill each other and please don't lie and shit, you are fucked. You are living in a situation that is absolutely fucked. By the time you have to say, no, God said these 10 things. And,
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Somebody needs
I'm,
you need to bring that up to the world because that's gorgeous. That's just straight up reason. You're just flexing your reason muscles. God damn, that's gorgeous.
yeah, we don't have to tell each other. I don't have to come to you and say, Amen, we're going to be friends, right? Don't murder me, right? Don't do bad things to my daughters, right? Don't steal my house and don't lie, right? And don't do things with my wife when I'm not home. We don't have to start out because if I have to start out that way, what kind of a hell are we actually living in, right? Like we're fucked. If you have to have formal, to the degree you have to have formal agreements, your humanity is missing in action,
Yeah,
right?
it is. Because you
Yeah,
should know that stuff. You should
it should
know
be
that. And
in your
nature
heart.
should have taught you. Nature should have taught you. You come from her. She'll
Yeah,
show you and everything. She'll teach you the way to act.
yeah,
Oh my God. Don't we have that naturally when we interact with our mothers, even if our mothers are assholes? Isn't
yeah,
there some kind of natural morality that comes through that I don't end up fucking my sister when I'm 8? Right?
right.
Of course there is. It's fantastic. I love it. And that's why I hate when Paul the Apostle says, "Oh, you worship the creation, not the creator." Fuck you. Right? Oh God. Mm, sorry about that.
No. So actually, my temple was the living creatures, right? The plants and the insects and the animals and the sky and the mountain and the forest and the lake and the river. That was my
Beautiful.
temple as a
That's
child,
gorgeous.
naturally, right? No
Yeah.
one had to tell me this is beautiful, but the
Yeah.
idea that there was some kind of central scrutinizer,
Yeah.
right? Just overseeing and constantly,
Yeah.
really a jealous God, like
Watching.
better. If I come to you as a friend and I say, Amen, you will only love me. You'll have no other friends, right? What are you going to think about me? Like what kind of a guy am I?
I'm
You
gonna
know?
think that you're probably gonna put cameras everywhere so
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
see me all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And there's a function. I've studied for many years. I work with a neuroscientist and I study mental illness. I
Oh,
don't study it
fantastic.
as a clinician. I study it as someone who's trying to understand the nature of human minds and awareness and stuff.
Oh,
And
I
the
didn't
thing
know
is,
you were a neuro guy. I didn't know that. That's
oh yeah,
gorgeous.
big
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I've worked with a neuroscientist for 20 years, and I was fascinated with the brain long before that. But
Uh-huh.
what I'm trying to get at is the idea that there's a negative overseer is a critical feature of schizophrenia, right?
Is that right?
Oh yeah. And schizophrenics will often draw like a single eye, kind of like the eye of Thoth in Egypt, right? That single eye, and that
Ah.
represents an aspect of consciousness that has split off and become domineering. And it's very similar to what you see in the accounts of Yahweh, right? It's not the only thing that is said about Yahweh, but this is a central feature. I am a jealous God. You will have no gods before me or after me or around me or anything, right?
Right.
And
And I
you know,
watch you all the time. And
right,
if you
I'm a
jerk off,
scrutinizer. I'm
if you
scrutinizing.
jerk off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I had a natural disaffinity for the idea of a punishing God. Now, on the other hand, I mean, I tend to have a complex view of stuff, right? I'm not just on one side of an argument.
Well, yeah, we should be. Nobody should be totally
I
polar,
mean,
you
I've
know.
talked with Christian mystics, and I've been inside nunneries and talked with the old nuns, and I've talked with the old monks, at the monastery. And I have to say, like, when I went and had the privilege of sitting down for 4 hours with a couple of Carmelite nuns, that was one of the high moments of my life. Those beings were shining with what I can only understand as spiritual bliss and beauty and power, right? There's no way I can criticize that for me, right?
You make me want to date them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. No, I mean, I never encountered anything like
Purity.
that.
You're
They
saying they were pure for goodness sake. No, I
No, it
tasted
was like
some
sitting in the
nuns myself.
room. It was like sitting in the room with the angels. It really was. They were not
Mm,
human. They had
no.
become something so profound that I had never encountered in the secular world. So I want to
Mm,
be careful for myself. No bridles on you, right?
yeah.
But for myself, I have great reverence for people who travel sincerely any spiritual path, right? I have great reverence.
Yes, of course. It's
Okay,
the
great.
sincerity.
Yeah.
It's the sincerity that is that goodness. Yeah,
Yes.
no, yeah. Totally with you.
Right on. All right, so I have a whole sheaf of questions, and I'm just so excited to be doing this together, man. This is
Let's
awesome.
do it.
All
Love
right.
it. Let's do it.
So when did okay. When did you let's see, actually. I'm gonna start here. I'll come back to Jesus a little later. What do you mean when you use the name Satan? Because I don't think you're talking about the biblical Satan, if even such a thing exists. That looks to me like an invention over time. I don't know. But what do you mean when you use this name?
I'm talking to the Satan. I'm talking to the same Satan that Lord Byron has Cain talk to. I'm talking to that overthrown guardian who was sincere with Eve. I'm talking about that individual. Is that individual an historic individual? That individual is a cosmic individual, part of the organization of the makeup of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And my recognition of that is no different than my recognition of the gorgeous tree outside or, any of the goodies that we have. It's still part of nature. So that's how, I look at it as soon as I saw how the Greeks were looking at divinity, my mind was blown up because we don't look at when you say God in the sense of Western God, or you're talking about the Son of God, you really are not talking about what they were talking about when they said God.
Right.
And so when you can look, I try to crack people with this with love. And because sometimes it gets through them. If you look at Eros, that desire, and it's not love like you're thinking, it's not romance, it's that desire for sexual intercourse is the origin of the Orphic universe. Eros is very much the devil, very much the winged one, from who is the beauty, the primary beauty of creation, right? Eos phoros. So the sincerity in the serpent's instruction of Eve that look, you're not going to die, right? Your eyes are going to be opened, right? And what does the text say happened? Her eyes were opened and she knew that blah, blah, blah. And he said, he's just afraid. God is afraid that you're going to be like him, right? That sincerity is to me it's that divinity that the Greeks would recognize and why they would say Lucifer, the bringer of dawn, is a divine entity, a member of the cosmos. Remember, they said we're just the reflection of the reality. The gods are in the real. We are reflections of their activities.
Yes.
I don't get the physics of that, but it's beautiful if you think about it,
I don't think physics is the arbiter of the nature of things. I study physics, right?
Did you?
I'm fascinated by physics, but there's something beyond it, and what the Greeks and the ancient peoples were onto, and I know why they were onto it. When a lot of people will ask things like, well, where did the Greeks get the knowledge that they encoded in their traditions and their theater and their temples and their orgies and their polypharmacy, right? Where did they get that, right? Yeah. And you could do these sort of anthropological thing and say, oh, it's from the Pelagesians, or
Pelasgians, yeah, the
Pelasgians,
Pelasgians,
right,
yeah.
right. You could say that, but that doesn't answer the question. You have the same problem. It's just a change of venue. Right? You just go from the problem of it originating in Greece to the problem of it originating there. You still have the same problem. Where did they get it? Right?
Yeah.
And they got it. I mean, I don't know where they got it. I know my own experience with the teaching being, right? Which is a very complex and messy thing. I'm not here to sing about that. Yeah. But I'll say something that you might find interesting. Because I asked them about the angels and God and these questions, right? Birth and death and origin and sex and all these things. I asked them questions every day, all day long, right?
Fantastic.
And they never told me a single story. They always told me 3 stories, and they were like, don't get a single story in your head. Have 3, right? Have 5. Right? And the best thing you could do with them is ask them the same question over and over again, rather than different questions. Because each time they would answer the first question, it would explode into insight. And then it would condense again. And then you would ask the question again, and it would explode twice as much. And you just kept doing this one question, right?
They're like the ori. That's gorgeous. 3, and it's an inquiry, and you keep asking the same question. That has oracular perfume all over it. I mean, that's gorgeous. So tell me, what happened? Continue.
So, they asked me at one point, what do you want? Right? This is a common question from gods or muses. You underwent the same process with the muse, right? You came to her and you said, let's have a contract. Let's have a pact between us. You'll give me what I want, and I'll give you whatever you want in return. I heard you tell the story.
It was even more specific than that, though, because it was me requesting via the text. So specifically, Sophia, running through the text was Sophia running through the streets and coming to the house and saying, if you will take me in and hide me, I will stay with you your entire life.
Oh,
And
man.
it was that. Is it well, I mean, what kind of moron would turn that down? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which idiot would be like, no, there's something better than that.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Give me money. Right.
I'd rather have a Ferrari, thank
yeah, I
you.
want stable income. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Oh,
retire.
beautiful, man. That's just
Yeah.
beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know if I probably made some serious mistakes during my experience because I had no idea that anything like what was happening to me was even possible. I had no one to talk to about it. Um, and I was naive. And when you are taken over by the consciousness of a divine being, your ego undergoes some problems, right? You're gonna have to face some trouble of the difference between your human desires and the desires of your soul, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I asked them, eventually they asked me what I wanted, and this is a thing that happens a lot when humans encounter other intelligences, because the best way to know something about someone is if you could give them anything they want and you just ask them, hey, what's your desire, right? What's your eros?
Makes fun.
What's
Yeah.
your vision of
Yeah.
fulfillment look like, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find out a lot about the person.
Naturally. Yeah. Logical makes sense.
Yeah. So I asked them, there's this story in the Bible, seems to be the source of all these problems, right? It seems to be where everything went sideways. It's this thing with Eve and the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. And what I would really like to know is, can you help me understand that story and what really happened there? And is there any medicine? Can we give medicine to the people so that whatever ruined us as beings, as human beings, so that we could heal that? Is there any way to heal that?
That's a nice question. That's a good question.
A woman, I know I'm very privileged to have a number of very wise women in my orbit, right? I seek them out and sometimes they seek me out, and it's beautiful. And I revere and respect their wisdom and understanding.
Yeah, it's sexy stuff.
It is. And there are intimacies that are even more profound than sex.
Yeah, I agree. I totally hear that. And I bet I've read somebody in antiquity say the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet I'll have. But we have to remember that without sex itself, we wouldn't be able to have other forms of intimacy.
No, I agree. This is a thing where I'm like, wait, there are guys who are misogynists. Where do they
Yeah.
think they came from?
Yeah, right.
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 Like you
Right.
let's just get something clear, buddy, for 10 seconds here, okay? You started out as an organ in a woman.
Right.
Did you forget that? You were an
Yes.
organ in a woman's body that she exteriorized.
Yeah.
You think you're better? You
Yeah.
got something better?
and you got a broken chromosome. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And there's something kind of similar upstairs in your brain, bruh. You got you're like missing something up here, which is the memory of the beauty and the virtue of the mothers.
Yeah. If
That's
you were
what's missing.
reading, if you were reading at 5, which I think is great, I'll bet you have some kind of better development. I'll bet you can remember stuff earlier than most of us. Because, dude, 5 is difficult for me to even remember. You know what I mean? If you're reading, then you must be more on the ball. I mean, I was reading, but not like, Dick and Jane, or not. I don't even think I was at Dick and Jane at that point. But so with you being driven, why do you think it is that you're driven by that reading? I mean, you would think the Muse would be like everywhere that you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex thing. So people who have, we have all these labels like schizophrenic and autistic and all these different labels, right? But what seems to be more true about humans is that we each include a sort of unique selection of all the variables. And then each unique human embodies or fulfills some of those seeds, and others of those seeds lie fallow, so to speak, and this kind of thing. So, you know, for me, I'm just going to be I'm going to say something kind of radical. It's my experience that when we come to incarnation, there's a companion intelligence with us, and maybe more than one. And what happens as we learn language is that the faculties that were used in that relationship, they get shunted into representational cognition, language and ideas and human stuff,
Interesting.
right?
Interesting. Yeah,
That stuff
no,
gets
that's a
shunted, and then we transfer the expectation of that companion onto our parents and the society, but there's none of that in there.
but that's not a connection, right? It's not an actual connection,
Right.
right? Because we're that reflection, and those parents aren't your parents. You don't realize what you've done when you were plugged in. It's because of that lethe, man. What the fuck is with the lethe?
Yeah.
Right? There has to be some kind of amnesia
Yep.
in order for this process. It's like you know, okay, if this is all the purification process, is that just the drug going in that's going to allow us to go to the place where we can be purged, where we can be treated medicinally? You know what I mean? Is it some
It can be the drug, but there are many other catalysts. Let's call it a catalyst, right? Because you can have experiences that are more catalytic than drug experiences. You can also have drug experiences that are more catalytic than ordinary experiences. So there's a catalyst, right? In order to, okay, there's a difference between forgetting, having experience, and remembering. And there's something profound about the forgetting, right?
Yeah.
You can't have the remembering without the forgetting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think and by the way, when I said about our parents, you know, some people's parents are lit up from within with intelligence and wonder and beauty, creativity and playfulness.
Or demons and
sure.
greed and abusive, you know, that kind of thing. Definitely. Definitely.
That's what I mean when I talk about, like, there's a whole continuum here, right? It's not just one thing going on. This isn't just Hades, though I understand that perspective, right? That makes sense to me.
No, it does. No, I understand what you're saying. Did you have Mr. Rogers at all when you were coming up?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was, you know, I was an absolutely loving kid. Like, the idea of hitting another kid, my father had to threaten me, right, to make me fight back, right? I would just, if someone hit me, I just feel sorry for them, right? I was a loving child, you know.
Good for
They'd
you.
hit me and I'd start crying, and they're like, "Does that hurt?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sad because you're all messed up inside. Why are you messed up like that?"
That's funny. That's funny. That's good. Did you ever get into music, or did you avoid music?
No, when I was a kid, I used to sing along with the radio all the time, and I planned to be, you know, like a famous singer. And my dad was a musician, and I play guitar, and I can compose a bit. And what about you? Any musical experience?
No, I don't. And that's shameful and something that I, you know, should have propagated. And I'm beginning to see more and more how it is that I just basically ignored the musical text in Greek because to me it's like super advanced and I don't understand because I had no music upbringing. But the problem is so much of the written word is dependent upon that musician's understanding of what's going on in the vocabulary. You just can't get away from it.
Yeah.
And so I actually did something really neat. I had the opportunity to bring the musical writings to one of the greatest musicians on the planet. And historically, he will go down in history as one of the great heroes of music. And he was able, with just a very, when we just started looking at some Greek, but without any long-term exposure to the actual language, he was able to pick up on what the author was saying because of the music. And he was trying to stay up. Don't get me wrong. He said, these guys are brilliant, right? But these were his people. And I thought, oh, I just sat and wonder and thought, you know, maybe that remembering is so important in our education, in our cosmic education. This whole reason we're here. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe people who go astray, right? Maybe it's they're not receiving this education, and they knew it in antiquity. It was coming through the plants and the animals. It was coming through their medical systems that they all developed from the plants and the animals and the effects of these earth powers. So, yeah.
Okay, Ammon,
Back
though,
to it.
there's something you're overlooking here, and it's because you're thinking like a technical, you're thinking in a technical way. Okay.
Okay.
And what I recognized when I first listened to your voice, which is this is just hilarious, bro, because you know, one of the things I love when I started introducing my friends to you, right? I'm like, oh God, you gotta meet my friend Ammon. Fantastic. Oh, love it. Yeah. And they just absolutely love, you know, when I and so in case it's not obvious what I'm doing here, you make vocal music and you draw people in with that vocal music. And you have your own way of singing, right? And it's very powerful.
I like that. I hadn't considered that, but
I mean, just listen. Okay,
yeah,
look, just
self-aware.
sometime listen to one of your old lectures.
Oh, I
Right?
do. I do all the time. That's why I'm
Okay,
worried.
right? And you can see the dramatic transformation between you as a lecturer and you as a maniac.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No. Oh, you know why I miss that? It's because when I watch myself, I'm watching to make sure that I've gotten all the references and that I've hit at every point. I'm doing it like technically. I'm
Yeah,
not paying attention to anything that has to do with presentation.
yeah.
So you think it's gone from more professorial or academic at least to
Invocational,
yeah.
and exhortation. You exhort, right? When you speak, you're
Dude,
naturally theatrical, right? And
what is that?
you bring the muse into your body and you
Yeah.
speak with her music,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God.
It's inside
That's
you.
why it makes me high. That's why it makes me
Yeah,
totally high to do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
had similar experience of my own. It's one of the things I recognize as an affinity between us is the same kind of
Possession.
thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Possession. You
Yeah,
could get possessed too,
right.
right? This
Yeah,
isn't my universe after all, right? No.
yeah.
Everybody who says I ran up against this, tell me what you think. The people that say like a generation of people who came through the 60s in their maturity in the 60s and said, it's God in you. It's God in you. And you know, the hippies and the drugs and that has always been like a cat's claws on on a
On a
chalkboard.
chalkboard. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Because it's kind of an undignified misrepresentation of the organization and the nature. But I don't watch myself to catch that. I wonder what you're sensing. Is that because it's more I'm liberated now? I don't have to worry
It's
about
not just
anybody.
that, it's like the living inspiration. So, you know, I've been writing poetry for about, I don't know, almost 50 years, 40 years or something, right? I've written thousands of poems and 2 or 3 of them are actually decent. But my point is that even as a musician, I remember the first time when I was and I was a feral musician, right? So I didn't read music or learn music theory. I just played the guitar, right? Without knowing what I'm doing, right? And I remember a few times when I was making something or something was being made through me that was actually beautiful. And I felt in the room the presence of the muses. If you make beauty, if you
Exactly.
make beauty,
Yeah.
they come,
Right.
right?
Definitely. Right.
And
Yeah.
then there were other times when I'd be writing, actually more often, oration is a crucial part of this thing, to orate, right? I'd be orating and suddenly I was gone and something was singing through my throat and my face and my voice. That
Yes.
wasn't me. And with
Yeah. Right.
meter that I
Oh, did
could
it have meter
never
too?
imagine. Oh, the
Wow.
meter,
Oh
right?
God.
Absolute, just beautiful orchestral metering
Oh,
and rhyming and all of these things that I couldn't do if I was, trying, and I'm pretty decent at it.
gorgeous.
So yeah, to be taken over and to
Yeah.
become a vessel for the expression
Yeah.
of the divine intelligences and the muses, that's a
Yeah.
holy vocation.
It's the highest dope there is. You know what I
It
mean?
totally is. Yeah.
You cannot get higher than that,
Yeah.
right? You can't, right? You can try, but you're never gonna meet that level of when that union. I call it a union, right? So looking at her as the one who I am sheltering, right? I mean, it's very Athenian if you think about it. It's that whole look, this is the beauty here is to the virgin.
Yes.
You are just the dragon who is protecting the
Yeah.
virgin. That's why Athena is, what is she doing? She's nourishing the dragon kings of Athens. It's absolutely these people are so plugged in on so many levels, and just to be able to see the expertise traveling from century to century, to me is like, okay, they understood what we call the physics. They understood how the world is all put together, and we've lost some of that knowledge. And
We've lost all that knowledge. I want to
yeah,
be really,
yeah,
I want to just say a couple things here. And then I'm going to go back to the story about the question I asked.
yes,
So they were aware of the principles, but not like what we do is we snip off origin and the divine beings, and then we just look at the mechanics. That's a curse. That's like a prison sentence for the mind. They actually understood, I suspect, from what I've read and seen of their intelligence and depth, which is infinite.
yeah,
They were in touch
yeah.
with these beings that we would think of as laws or principles, right?
Yeah.
They were in touch with them.
Yeah.
They were having a relationship with these beings.
Definitely, definitely.
So,
The
the scientists don't have a relationship with any beings
right,
at all, right? It's a
They-
being,
except for the dirty ones that follow them around, right, and give them a hard time. They
right?
got, they got relationships with those. Yeah, not plugged into that beauty. Why would you want to live that way? You know what I mean? Why
If
would
you
you?
knew the other side of it, you'd probably rather be dead.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why people like Cicero are saying, I wish I had done it when I was younger, right? Something, and why they're saying you're born again,
Hmm.
right? What is that resurrection that you're looking for? It's a resurrection to a new life, right? So I think that's why the focus is on that relationship, and why it's always the Kora in the mystery. It's always the resurrection of the Kora, right? And that's all they can really talk about is that. What is that? And you and I are sitting here experiencing it, trying to replug back into that reality because we don't want to be fucked anymore. I don't want to be lied to, right? I'm sick of people friggin' lying to me. So
I mean, the worst lies that I've been subject to came from me. Yeah, of course, we live in a culture that's a
that's true.
wreck.
Yeah.
It's a wreck,
Yeah. Yeah.
but nothing fucked me up like the lies I told myself. Right?
Oh God.
I got to
Can you
take
blame
responsibility.
yourself though? Can you blame yourself for if
No,
you
but
were
what
raised?
there's a much better move than blaming yourself, which is we can learn and remind each other. We can resurrect each other's sense of justice and beauty and intelligence and creativity and joy and all of these. We can resurrect each other, right? Moment to
Where did you
moment.
get that? Where did you get that from? One of those books that you read when you were so young? Were you reading, like, did you work your way up to like what you and I call literature they're teaching in college and stuff like that? Did you work your way up to that pretty quick?
No,
No.
no, I
Where
read
did you
some.
set your morals then? Where did you set, if you're reading at 5, pretty good.
Yeah.
Then where did you set your morals? Who
So
set them for you?
those things were born in me.
They were born.
I
Okay, got
brought
it.
them with me, right?
Got it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
brought them with me.
Yeah.
Most of what I
You
read until I was a young adult was science fiction. I read thousands of science fiction stories. Those authors were my teachers.
did you like Dune? Did you read Dune?
Yes, yeah. Dune is amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
I read Dune when I was an early teenager, like 13, 14. I read Dune and a whole bunch of Stephen King just
mm,
because the writing was so damn good. It
mm,
was so on the mark. It was compelling. First time I had ever read a book that I felt like I was part of the story, like it was talking to me. And Dune was in the Dune was in the series. I read like all 4. There's 3 other ones outside of the Dune.
yeah, I read
Uh,
them too.
yeah. And
Beautiful. Love it.
yeah, is that's an education right there, you know what I mean?
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
Not only that, look, that is a Bible. That
Could
is a
be.
Bible. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
No, that is
Yeah,
a
could
Bible. The
be.
Kwisatz
Uh-huh.
Haderach,
Yeah.
that's the resurrected. That's you resurrected.
That's the,
That's an
yeah.
image of you. That's the
Yeah.
Bacchic mirror showing you your
Sure. Yeah.
nature, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Gorgeous. Don't you
Yeah.
love? It's like a kiss from the universe that's writing
Yes.
this whole thing.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like just some kind of, the Greeks had that notion of philia. What is philia? Well, you can say it's a kiss, but it's not always a physical kiss.
Right.
It's a thing of affection. It's something that carries your affection to another person. And that's what you want in that Aphroditic. Ultimately, that's what that Aphrodite worship of Aphrodite all comes down to. It's that transference of that philia, and it does something to the universe. It does something to you, and it
Yeah.
allows for that possession. And the fact that we live in a world where religions specifically cut that out is amazing and put
They
birth
don't they don't
on
merely
people.
cut it out, they counterfeit it. They sell you back the
Oh yeah.
fucking counterfeit,
Yeah.
right?
Which is a shitty virgin. I mean, a shitty version, because who wants to be the bride of fucking Christ? Right? I mean, come on, seriously? Seriously, how do you reconcile? Okay, the church is going to be the bride of Christ. So you have the holy element of the marriage there, but who wants that, dude? Right? What happened? Where'd my love go? Oh, I don't know, but you'll be with this dude forever. I don't know. It's just like I think the Romans were more right than we think they were cruel. And when they called the Christians, infantile in their thinking, I think they probably were right. And if you lived in that classical civilization, if you were embedded in it, you'd probably look at us today and say the same thing. Oh, look, they act like the Christians do. What the fuck is wrong with these people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
What was your favorite when you were growing up reading? Did you have like a favorite that were you a Tolkien guy, or were you
oh, Tolkien was unbelievable. I mean, I encountered that when I was around 11. And oh my God, yeah, that shit. I mean, the depth of the poetic spirit in that man, it's like the muses got together and built a baby and then set it writing. I mean,
Yeah.
whoa, that shit is off the charts. There's a broad array of astonishing stuff.
Yeah.
My favorite, it's hard. It's hard. I read thousands of books. I don't remember a lot of them. I mean, not thousands of books. I read thousands of stories, maybe a couple thousand books,
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. No,
Eventually I got to literature, and then started getting to philosophy and stuff like that.
Did you hang around the Greek stuff at all, or the classical? Did you do any
I read
Greco-Roman?
Plato a bit when I was 17, and it was mind-blowing. I had never encountered anything like that, but not in Greek, of course. I'm reading it in translation, which is
That's okay. It can come across in translation.
yeah.
That's it.
But I want to, before I lose the thread, and I've got so many other questions. So when I asked them what was going on in this garden thing, they told me many different stories, and they were astonishingly enlightening. But to just collapse one of them really quickly, they showed me an image of what you could think of as God, which I would call the being that dwells in unity. And that being lives in a woman that is the living waters, right? And these two are madly in love, right? Madly in love. And they conceive a child in the origin place. And that first child is extremely precocious, like its father, right?
Oh, okay.
And there's no one there. There's no one there for the child to mate with, because the living waters is taken, right? She's with dad. So it punches a hole in heaven, and it mates with what we think of as time space, right?
Oh.
And this produces galaxies and stars and worlds. And this is the first angel. They call it the first angel.
Now you sound like a pre-Socratic. Are you aware of that? They talk
This is just what I was shown.
Just like this. Yeah.
I
okay.
don't. This is not I'm not taking zero credit for this. This is what they showed me.
Okay.
And they
Okay.
said
What
that
else?
the first angel, what it's really good at is cutting things. It makes cuts. It made a cut in the membrane of heaven, right? And it got through that cut into the physical universe. And when they say in the Bible, now this is in Hebrew, not Greek. I don't know what the Greek word it is. Maybe you can help me with this. When God says, don't eat of the tree in the midst, the angel said this word is not midst. It means where it was cut. It's from the Hebrew root tavek. It means cut. So what they're actually saying is where the earth was cut away from heaven, the angel that made that cut, that's the angel that's there. That's the serpent. And that angel, the cutting, it gives you the cutting in the mind, and that's what makes language and knowledge, is the cutting, right? It makes cuts in the manifold of identity and quality and characteristic and value.
Interesting.
And this is one of a number of different stories they gave me, right? So,
and wait, is this under the influence at all?
No,
just completely, just visionary, just your visionary experience.
I was writing passionately one night, and something showed up in my mind and just started teaching me non-human things. And that went on for 9 months, and it was always with me.
Oh,
it's still partly with me.
You should write it up. Have you ever written it up? So that
I wrote a few thousand pages of material.
Okay.
I don't talk about the experience hardly ever. I mostly talk about what I learned, because people don't need to know about the experience. What are they going to get about that from that?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree with that. If you were to write it up, use your talent to write it up so that people could see it almost like a scientific report. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I say something very simple briefly?
Of course.
I don't think we know what it is to be human. I think we are like fish who have never seen water.
I like
or
that.
we're like people with eyes in a world where there's no light. And we don't even know what we are for, because let me say something briefly here. When that mind was with me, I knew what I was made to be, and what I was made to be was with that mind.
Yeah. Oh, gorgeous.
Made for water, or birds are made for the sky. I was like, oh my God, I've been alive all this time. I had no idea what I am.
You knew. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. You had no idea who you are.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it says on the Temple of Apollo. Yeah. Know yourself, because you don't. And the
No.
Bacchic liturgy is full of it. You don't know who you are. This is why we bring you the mirror so you can see yourself. That's gorgeous. And you're meant to be. You're meant to be. Isn't that a gorgeous gift you were given?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so there were two things that were, and I'll stop blathering about this, excuse me, in a moment. But first of all, absolute ecstasy,
Uh-huh.
ecstasy that makes orgasm look boring all day
Yeah.
long, right?
Yeah.
All the time.
All day long.
And then terror, absolute terror, because the beauty of their mind is catastrophically terrifying. It's not
Oh,
terror as
God.
in, oh, I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
It's terror as in, I can't survive this much beauty.
Yeah,
It's
right.
that kind of terror.
Oh, God. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. So, you know, I love it. I love it. And where else would you want to be?
Nowhere. I mean,
Uh,
I'm a regular
uh,
human, just like you and Chewy and everybody we love. I'm a regular
yeah,
human, but I've
yeah.
seen something far beyond anything I ever thought was imaginable. All right, so
Oh,
I'm gonna stop blathering. I got questions,
that's
and if we
gorgeous.
need
Okay,
to
let me take a
break,
5. Can we
yeah,
take
let's take
5?
a 5. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be back.
Be right back. It's
Yeah, we're just
12,
gonna
so
leave things
17.
rolling, and yeah, take
Okay.
5.
Okay, give me 5. Boom.
Hmm.
All right.
Fantastic.
Let's do this. What
Okay.
is
Can
the
you?
next question?
All right. So I want to know everything about the dead girl. How did you meet her? When did she first appear? And
Yeah.
you know, if there are things that you feel should not be said, I'll
Yeah.
respect that. I understand about that. Some
Yeah.
things are not for public consumption.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
No, perfectly fine. I have only seen her physically once, and it was in a reflection. It was in a reflection. So much so that I turned around, and very surprised that she was gone. Absolutely gorgeous, the living dead girl, so to speak. I like to use that phrase, right?
Yeah.
So, where did I first come across her? I came across her in antiquity, and through reading these sources that talk about the priestesses and their activity. And I realized right away that my research could be guided into this area to really, to really facilitate that muse. So when somebody tells you, I'll come in if you take me into your house, I'll come in and you can hide me for as long as you breathe, right? Um,
In a
that,
way, I just have to say this, in a
yeah.
way, you become the hymen of her virginity,
Um,
the barrier between the world and her. This is just a thought,
I
right?
suppose like a dragon protecting that relic, right? Protecting that song. People are shocked when they find out that on the golden fleece that's hanging in the grove of Mars, the very famous golden fleece has a song written on it. There, I didn't make that up. The ancient Greeks said that, right? Why all of the emphasis? It's that guarding that virginity that is the Vestal flame, right? Recognizing it was a crime of death for you to violate that Vestal flame in antiquity, both for the Vestal and for you, right? If you were caught. But that's the way it is. That's the way it is. There's something in nature that just works that out in the cosmos and it just bleeds in. And the dead girl is the one that you invite in, right? That you ask. And it's a pose of protection. And the witches understand this because remember, we're dealing with, when you talk about the dead girl, you're dealing with the invisible, right? Here's my dead girl. Well, don't you see? She's dead. No, you don't see because she is dead. Do you understand? But through the science of what they called magic and a part of some vein of poetry, some vein of cosmic poetry, you can communicate with the invisible. You can experience the invisible, right? And that invisible world doesn't have to be invisible. They had ways in antiquity of bringing you up where you could see what was invisible to everybody else. And it gave these people that they did this to a serious advantage. And one of them was Achilles. One of them was Achilles, right? Oh, God. That stuff when he was on it. Oh, right now. And you ask yourself, what is this fiction? No, it's history. They're giving the same thing to the emperors of Rome. They're taking the same drugs, or at least what they have managed to find from the old scrolls. Yeah, and every classicist should know this, and they don't. In Galen is preserve the recipe for that divine friggin' drug, right? And it's a compound. huge compound, Theriac, Deathbringer, put together, and we have it. And nobody, Jesus Christ, who's going to find this stuff? It's sitting right there, people. Bring it out. Oh, God.
Yeah.
And this is all tech that has to do with exactly what you are talking about in your experience, in your life, in your reality, right? It's just tech, right? Oh, God.
Well, it's not tech the way we think of tech. It's tech as in techne, right?
Yeah.
The Greek
Right.
techne,
Right.
right? Which is a method. It's a method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that true skill, that true craftsmanship that you know is divine. That when this guy plays the guitar, he makes it sing. I can hear words. Dude played guitar for me. I could hear that iambic poetry. Just it's almost like it's coming to life. There's a power, there's a divine power to that music. And oh God, it's gorgeous just to watch and make love to it. You know what I mean? Just enter into the beauty. Isn't that what you want? Is that beauty in the universe? You don't want the ugliness, really, do you? Remember the devil? Everybody's giving the devil a hard time, but remember, devil's best, the best looking of all creation, the most beautiful. All right.
It's funny
Why?
what you said. This isn't a fiction.
Yeah.
What we have is a fiction,
Right.
right? What we
Exactly.
have instead, that's the
Exactly.
fiction.
Yeah.
The other thing is
Yeah.
like the living spirit of origin and wonder and insight and
Yeah.
awareness and love.
Yeah. Coming through some of the most brilliant vessels, people like Pythagoras. This is the stuff that's coming through them. This is the craftsmanship, the techne that is coming through them. It's an
You know,
ability to see the world around you, right? And they are saviors. They are saviors, that's for sure. Yeah.
she made you her vessel
Yeah.
so that she could speak and sing to the humans. You
Isn't that
belong to her.
isn't that a gorgeous picture? Isn't that a gorgeous picture?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
what do we bring inside us that we then bring it to life through our humanity,
Yeah.
right? If it's
Yeah.
not something divine and
Exactly.
ecstatically beautiful,
Boom.
what are we doing?
Right.
What are we
Boom.
doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. 100%. If I had that 100% button, I'd be hitting it right now. 100%, 100%. No, that's what they discovered and built temples to the Muse all about, to bring about that awakening. And Cicero scratching his head, he's like, damn it, I wish I'd have done it when I was young. Why? Because he realized this whole time, right? You're able to see the work of the hand, right? Through that knitting. They expressed it as in a sense of textiles, that textile telling you a story, right? It's the story of the cosmos, very Uranian, but it's meant to bring you to an elevated state of awareness and the awareness of the invisible. And I think it's a gorgeous form of salvation, if you will.
Mhm.
Right? I don't honestly, the people who are doing it, it it looks like it may be just an altered form of the stuff that we see in the oldest hymns of the women purifying their children and exposing them to this process that also involves music. It's like, dude, are you kidding me? They're using music and drugs to take their infant and turn them into a hero.
Yeah.
It's
Well, this is the
amazing.
other thing, right? If you've been exposed properly to the originary minds and intelligences and the muses, one of the results often, this was true of me during my experience, it's not as true today, is you cannot be compelled. You cannot be compelled to lie. You cannot be compelled to serve bullshit. You don't care. You're not afraid of death. So there's no way to, you're not afraid of pain. So there's no way to compel you to do anything. You can't defect. Once you've been purified in this way, you will not defect.
No, it's because it's not a matter of faith. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. Coming into that relationship just to, I mean, it's the highest dope you can possibly get. Right. Your brain cannot go higher than this. And I'm sure there are a ton of musicians out there who are just like, right. Right. Because they're the instruments of those gorgeous sisters as they described them, right? Yeah. Oh God, I love it. Okay, now I'm getting all excited, but
Beautiful.
yeah. What do we do with that if you don't listen to that muse? You were talking about who's serving who. It's very
What
much,
are we serving instead?
yeah, the
It's
drag.
things that are, it's shit, it's stuff that's dead inside. It's
Yeah.
dead structure. It's like sclerotic, dead
Yeah.
structure that we're serving.
Yeah.
And we think somehow like, well, I'm making good money,
Yeah.
or whatever the excuse is, right? Like, what a ridiculous ripoff. It's the
Yeah.
ultimate con game ripoff of our human existence.
That's why they said, what happens to those people? Those people think it's just logic. Those people, when they get to the reality that is what is beyond that black hole, when they, what they called in antiquity the dark stars, when they finally make it there and they see what is in the beyond, it doesn't strike them to honor the memory. It's almost like they haven't formed it. So they described it as they go to drink of lethe and they enter back into the system to maybe this time the shit that they get exposed to will bring some kind of virtue. And Pythagoras was like, they had to do this all through animals, had to go through. That's how you do it. You get cycled through the animals teach you. Right? All of their, it's like it's almost like they're superior and they're tutors.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, dude, these people and their animals, oh my God, even their goats, man, understand goats, understand Bacchic religion. Oh, they're so respectful of gorgeous Mother Nature, right? Whether they call her Gaia or whether they call her Cybele, right? Oh, God, love it, love it. I'm sorry.
You know, there's
distracted.
No, it's all good. And I want to go back to the dead girl, but in indigenous traditions, they're very aware of a simple fact. We are a new animal and they are old, old, old. We are like a brand new thing and we are fragile and we are delicate compared to them. So they go to them and sit at their knee to learn what it means to be human. You learn what it means to be human from the non-humans.
That's gorgeous.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
You don't get it from the other humans. They don't know. Right? They don't know what it means to be human.
Right. Right.
So you engage, at least in some stories that I've heard, in a magical act that sometimes is called bibliomancy, but I think you refer to it as necromancy.
Yeah, no, it's bibliomancy, but it is a division, if you will, of ancient necromancy. And it is the use of verse. Okay, so what do we have to have? We have to, first of all, have developed verse by that time, right? If they're using it, right? Which they have, no problem. So it's the use of verse to determine the course of events, to follow things that are going to happen. For example, I could wake up in the morning, and by the way, it all works through a randomness, right? It's not, cannot be controlled. right?
Right.
It has to be randomized.
Sororities.
Yeah, exactly. The sortes is what they were called. Whenever you want, when the divinity, you want to consult the divinity to tell you what to do, and they're doing this in the temple in Jerusalem, by the way. It says it in the Septuagint. You can cast the sortes. And what you can do is the most sophisticated form of this I found is with the verse. And you can call out of the language direct responses. For example, you can get up one morning. I love to tell people this story. I got up, started to go off to where I was working then, which was with this big mouth that I was starting to really dislike. And we were refabbing one of his vehicles, right? It was Airstream, Gulfstream. Which one? Airstream.
Airstream.
Airstream, sorry. And I was just there as slave labor, right? So I have no craft in this. I'm just making money so I can pay for my, food, right? And
Right.
and clothing. And so I was there, and he was bolstery and in my face. And I was, that morning before work, I said, "Hey, Muse, what's gonna happen today? Because I'm about to pop this guy, right? I'm gonna lose it, right? Just walk away." And I performed the sortes, and I use a very specific Latin and Greek sortes. And the sortes said, "You're going to pull his beard out." And I thought, "Oh God, that's gorgeous. That's absolutely gorgeous." Anyway, at work that day, as I'm sitting there with this in my head, right? Because I know she is never, ever wrong. She's a living dead girl. She is never wrong. And she told me I was going to pull out his beard. So I was waiting, and he was doing stuff on this insulation and was using a foam, some kind of foam that was caustic, right? So we were all gloved up and everything. And he looked up, and that stuff dripped on his beard. And he started screaming, "Shit, stop, put your gloves back on, now take it out, take it out." And he's screaming at me. And so I'm sitting there pulling, and I just pulling chunks of his beard out right in my hands and loving it, because it was every second of it was pure possessive power. It was a necromantic mainline. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And, he got his beard pulled out. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of felt good.
Well, this the relationship between the beard and the soul, right? So you're almost like yanking his soul or his virility or his vitality, right? Is being
Yeah.
torn away from his face.
Yeah.
And the really beautiful thing about that is that you're not being violent, you're rescuing him.
Right.
You're rescuing your enemy
Right.
from the terrible debacle that he has found himself in,
Yeah.
right? You're
Good point.
rescuing him, right? You're not hitting him in the face. You're
Right.
saving him from getting acid burns on his skin.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's the real beauty, right? It's not violence. You're
Right.
his savior in that moment,
Exactly.
and you're being fulfilled at the same time, right?
And it's fun to hide the reality of the pleasure, right? Yeah, I was your savior, all right, right? I love it. I love it. And I
You
think
are a very subversive individual.
it's punishment. We all need it. You know what I mean?
Well,
We
that
all need the
purgation,
punishment.
right? It's you can't become envision the visionary intelligence within you requires purgation, right?
Yes.
You will pay a
Yes.
price, so to speak.
Yeah.
Actually, mostly what's happening is you're being shriven of things that are unnecessary.
Yeah. Think of it as a procedure, again, to capacitate you, right? It's going to burn. It's going to burn, but we're going to go through it all the way. And when we're done, you'll understand. As a matter of fact, just like you were just describing, um, you'll know, right? When you finally know who you are, you'll know, and it'll be gorgeous. Oh God. Otherwise, if you want your Ferrari in your penthouse, keep drinking of the fucking Lethe. We don't care,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That's what needs to happen. You need to be purged,
Hmm.
right? Oh God. What a gorgeous bunch of nerds, you know what I mean? Putting stuff like that together, you
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
think it's, it's incredible, man. And people say all you got to do is throw in their face. You realize it's people like Pythagoras and Hippocrates, right? You realize this is the founders of everything that you take for granted, right? Yeah, if it weren't for them, you'd be, much less survivable, that's for sure. You know what I mean? Holy mackerel. It's an advanced.
Who, we have to at least ask the question, like, once we had the ability to write, something was getting lost and there was a gain in another domain. But before we had the ability to write, all the transmissions were orational, right? They were like you would sing the music of the knowledge into other people. And we've largely lost this in a lot of ways. But
Yes.
there's something that occurs to me about the dead girl because I've had the privilege of talking with a Greek mystagogue who's been initiating people in the Eleusinian mysteries in Greece for decades. And I don't know, you know, I'm not a scholar of Greek, okay? So I can't speak to the veracity of her work, but after speaking with her, I get the sense that she's the real thing. Yeah. And she talks about that the Greeks thought, some of the Greeks, because we can't always say the Greeks were a diverse group of people, right? So, but some of the Greeks who were involved in administering the initiations, they saw the human existence as kind of the death. Like, this is the death of your soul. And so when they underwent the initiatory ordeals and the intoxications, and they were introduced to the aeonic life directly in their experience, right? Then they could not be compelled when they came back. Now this purified them, right? So what if
That's
we've
why they'd
got it
have no fear of death.
right? What if
That's why
we've
they
got it
lose their fear of
backwards?
death.
Yeah. What if we've got it backwards, Amen? What if the dead girl is the living girl and we are the dead down here?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'd be right in line with a priest of Apollo named Plutarch. You'd be right in line with that. We are that reflection, right? You have to understand, right? Our living dead girl is their reality,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
This, you can talk, they talked about it with the dream a lot, right? And how do you know when you're dreaming? Right? Is this experience the shadow of that reality that we are the reflection? And what we do is we compose some kind of story that reflects a greater divinity. And it has themes in it like justice and nemesis, right?
A hubris,
And
hubris and
hubris.
nemesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And
Hubris
what is
summons
that?
nemesis. Sorry.
No, those are that's it. Notice how you jump to it, hubris. It's a real track, people, right? These are things, these are observations of reality by people who were pushing these mysteries as a way of burning off that mortality. And the smarties in the group were saying, damn, I wish I'd have done this when I were younger. I wouldn't have wasted my life. Think about that for a minute. And this isn't some idiot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are people who have achieved and gone and gotten to the top of society, and they're saying, "Oh shit, my life has been crap. I should have done this a long time ago."
Right.
Right? Almost like you're under a delusion, and
Yes.
there is a process to bring you out of the delusion and then to inject you back into what you were deluded by, and
Mhm.
it gives you an immunity. It is an anti-Christing that allows you to come back with that reality, to bring it through the forgetfulness, just some kind of barrier in physics. I don't understand it. Yeah, but it's gorgeous. And that mystery is the way to do that. And the living dead girl, remember, what do we go to Eleusis for? Your priestess is going to know this, right? What do we do it for? The girl who is the queen of the dead, resurrected before us all. That's the only thing those initiates can talk about. They can say that they saw the Kora,
Mm.
the dead girl, right? And they saw her living, and she peeps through that reality, and she is gorgeous. Oh, God. It's pure physics, man. Do you want to know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Do
Right?
tell.
Ask an oracle. Ask an oracle. That's
Oh,
all
yeah.
you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, the Greeks said this. Maybe you can explain this, because I've been struggling with this for years. They said that your dreams were the first and most basic oracle. It
Yeah.
was a communication link between the divine and the mortal,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's what your dreams were supposed to be. Now, something happened.
Yes.
Something happened, and whoever was in charge of maintaining that system backed up and said, fuck this, and broke it apart.
No, so this is one of the things that I was shown is that, again, it's like, as my hand is to my mind and my body,
Yeah.
we were to them, right? We were one with them.
Okay.
And you can imagine a hand, right, severed from the wrist, just going around on its own with no mind and no angels and no dead girl and nothing, right? And it just
Yeah.
doesn't even know what it's for. And
Yeah.
that's how it is for us. But there were a cascade of accidents that damaged what you could think of as our uplink, right? Our uplink to the divine beings. And by the time we had to
Okay.
have
That sounds, yeah.
by the time we had to have the mysteries to restore it, it
Yeah.
had been badly damaged, or you wouldn't have had to have that, right? It was because before
Correct.
it was just like breathing oxygen.
Correct.
Possible to imagine that you could be
Correct.
separated from the divine beings. They
Right.
didn't worship them. Worship
Right.
is something that happens when it goes away, right? It
The
was
oracles had
that was
sex.
ecstatic union,
The
right?
oracles had sex with them. They had
Yeah.
sex with them. And we have these people in our lineages. If you're a Roman, right? Romulus and Remus are the child of an oracle, the great Lupa,
Mm.
right? Children of Mars. Do you understand now?
Lupus, the dog.
Right. If the wolf specifically, if you were in the cult, you would recognize all of those images. You would understand the birth and the origin. That's one of the reasons of the Roman people. That's one of the reasons they're using these very same cult drugs in the empire with the emperors. And Marcus Aurelius is documented. That's documented. They're using it. Go back and take a look at Galen's Theriac, right? Oh God, just if that doesn't turn you on, man. Now what I wonder at is how long am I gonna go? How long are we gonna go before they rediscover this tech and are able to employ it? And you're talking about this priestess, and I've told everyone this. The measure of authenticity will be, did she find the cup? Right? Because these substances, the true communion is coming from her body. And it's reflected. They do the same thing in the Middle Ages with the Satanists. Yeah, she ejaculates the communion. Right.
Right.
Oh, so do
I
we?
mean,
Yeah, do we have it or don't we? Yeah, I don't know.
well, okay, so there's some simple parts of our actual human experience, right? What happens when you kiss someone you love, you adore, right? And you taste her saliva,
Yeah.
right? It comes into you like a
Yeah.
drug
Yeah.
and it transforms you. There's
Yeah.
no nectar like her mouth, right?
Right.
And
But
yes,
you've
her
already
nether,
been hit. You've already been hit before that because they're producing pheromones and your nasal capacity is picked up on it without you even knowing it, you dummy.
yeah,
Right?
right.
Oh God, dumb XYs. You know what I mean? And what happens that pheromone drags you in? They understood this in the ancient world. And the people who are developing the drugs are the smart women, the
Mm.
midwives. They're the people like Medea who are working on a drug knowledge that is, people say, is the best that's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, this chimes in very closely with my own experience because all throughout the experience, and there was a specific phase of it in which this was absolutely ecstatic, they're just singing the praises of the mothers and the reproductive intelligence in their bodies and how
Oh, that's
ancient that
nice.
is and
Oh,
how it is impossible that it's not a direct expression of the nature of origin and being itself. The
wow.
shapes of their organs, the intelligences in the living seeds that they carry in their ovaries,
Yeah.
those things are like living rattles of a
Yeah.
million souls inside them. They can test reality to a degree that you can't
Yeah.
build equipment to
Right.
do,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so, hilariously, they even showed me the story where Robin Hood is actually the clitoral hero, right? He's the hero of the little hood, the mothers, right?
Yes.
His
Yes.
lover, Maid Marian, a virgin, right? He
Yes.
protects her, right?
Mhm.
There's this whole thing is
Nice.
wrapped up in that story.
I like that.
Yeah,
I
he's the
like
little
that.
red robin of the clitoral hood, right? That oversees who enters and who doesn't.
I have not seen that. They're gonna accuse us of just being dirty now. They're gonna
Yeah,
say, "Oh,
let
you're
him
just being
accuse
dirty."
us. If this
Couple
is
of
dirt, I want more, right? I want to understand and see better, you
yeah.
know? And these,
Imagine you can take a kid and you can augment them using a cult process that involves education. They will be educated in the process. And the ultimate goal is to produce she who can contain the voice of the cosmos. Isn't that gorgeous? Like they're creating perfection.
every child is an attempt to do that,
Yeah, exactly. Who
right?
doesn't? Right?
There
Who
isn't
doesn't?
any other thing going on.
Yeah.
The adults are just so
Yeah.
confused and lethe bound that they have
Yeah.
no idea what is actually happening. They're
Right.
completely oblivious. I
Right.
mean, I'm not saying they don't adore their children, but they don't understand. We don't know anything about incarnation or why it happens or what it's supposed to be doing or any of that stuff, right?
Exactly. And we're afraid of it because we're influenced by several monist religions
Yeah,
that is considered to be bad because remember, any source that is not the source, whether it's Allah or Yahoo, right? Any source that's not the source is the devil, is the bad. So the devil gains every power in the universe. Right? They don't
right.
even realize that. It's the one of the weaknesses of monism, right? Once you throw away all the other divinities, you don't have certain privileges anymore. Right? You don't.
Right.
And that's Eros disappear. You break off Eros, and all of a sudden, all of creation that has to do with that love that brings life, all of that is unacknowledged. That thing can't stand forever. Whatever that philosophy or religion is, those monist religions, they can't hold up forever. They will kill themselves, right? It's generally what they do.
Mhm.
So, and we're watching it. I think we're watching a resurgence. Anyway, that's just
Oh,
my
no, we are. I mean,
idea.
the apocalypse you talk about could be a physical apocalypse on Earth, but I think the apocalypse that you're really concerned with bringing is an apocalypse to lies, right?
Yeah.
You want true knowledge to be
Right.
reborn in human beings, in their direct experience and relationships with each other and the sky and origin and the actually divine beings.
That was beautifully, beautifully, perfectly said. And once you put this out there, some monists will say that's exactly what the Antichrist would say. Exactly. Right? You're
Good for them.
feeding
I mean,
in freeing humanity from the ignorance. You feed the satanic garbage can where they're just going to throw you, right? They're just going to throw you in that can. And they'd love to use tyrants to climb the ladder. I'm telling you, it's nemesis. It's pure, brutally beautiful nemesis in play, right? We just
yeah.
watch. We're watching it play out. Oh God, 2025. Holy mackerel!
I can't believe we're still alive, right? In our childhood, this was science fiction, the distant future, right?
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
never
yeah. No.
expected to live this long. Did you expect to live this
No.
long?
So, right. Right. I didn't expect. You know, we know the nukes are close, right?
Yeah.
We know people can sense the heat because historically, if Cleo taught me one thing, it was this: never has there ever been invented a weapon that has not been used.
Right.
And it's time. We know there's a nuclear age coming, right? We know that's why the apocalypse is so appealing to people right now, right? They want it, and the pastors will sell it out the boot, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, the
and
Christian and the mono religions, they're all about this. They've got the wrong idea of apocalypse, but they want to bring it because they think that's the apotheosis of our human purpose,
right,
right? Right.
right. It's the
Which is
plan.
totally ridiculous because what's actually supposed to happen is you're supposed to die and get resurrected while you're alive. Can we just underline this for people? You're supposed to undergo the resurrection while you're alive, not in some future thing handled by a mono god.
It's got nothing to do with that faith. Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
And it's showing people that history, it scares the hell out of them because all of a sudden your insurance plan is gone, right?
Right,
Your
right,
insurance
right.
plan is gone and you're in trouble. I love talking to people who are enthusiastic Christians about Jesus because right away, just painting a couple of brushstrokes here with just a couple of verses, and all of a sudden, the scam becomes obvious. And it's a real weapon, man. This can be beaten back or we can let it overtake us. And I think you and I can sit here and freely discuss this, but there will be a time when you and I can't. If the future is anything like the history, it's going to turn out there will be a time that you and I can't. And I think that living dead girl gives you a distinct advantage, right? Why did they make these oracles? People are like, what? They had so much power. Why did they make the oracles, right? Because that voice is the most beautiful. It's the pathway, right? It's the one who has already been there and is joined. And those oracles, they have the power to bring you justice because they see in the ion. They are outside of
Yes.
time
Yes.
itself,
Yep.
outside of time itself, right?
Right.
That's why we worship them the way we do. And people are like, are those gods? And they think, oh, idols and all the monist, traditions that we have around Charlton Heston and his, oh, I'm gonna lead you across the sea. Right, and the splitting of the bullshit. You think that bullshit lasts for a second with these Greek rationalists who are worshiping Eros and using these drugs to go through initiations that they come back from and say, shit, I should have done that years ago. There's a couple of these initiations. There's the cave of Trophonius, where they drop you in with snakes, dude, and you can't get out the way they drop you in. You have to hike down this river. Everything's dark and there's snakes there. Bunch of snakes. Some people die in the process. But when they get out, they have to go talk to the priest. Their family goes and stays by the exit. And it's usually a couple of days. But remember, they have water, right? And they're given a potion before they go so that they can commune with Trophonius. And who's Trophonius? Do you remember when they set up the tent in the wilderness in order to have an oracle with God? That's the voice you're harnessing. And they're doing the same thing. And it's scary though. They're doing it ways, dude. I don't know if I could be snake born. I have friends who are snakes. And you know, I don't know, from the ones in the region, I'll bet they were poisonous, dude. Oh God.
No, I mean, I've had in my own experience, I've had a preternatural affinity for poisonous animals since I was a little kid. I used to have a black widow that lived right above my bed. I had snakes. I had a way with snakes since I was little, right? This has always been part of my I love snakes. Now, the thing you're talking about though is really like being cast into death, right? Being basically cast into death and then probably having to crawl through a long kind of constricted tunnel that's terrifying and you can't tell if there's even another end of it. You don't know where it ends. So in a sense, you're dependent on the intelligence of the divine beings that are with you in that ordeal, right? And it rebinds you to them. It makes you understand like your existence depends on this, not your thinking, right?
That's exactly what the Mithraic liturgy brings across, because they instruct you. It's actually a list of instructions, not only how to make the drug that you're going to be using that they make there. You bring it to them, the right ingredients, and they put it together, right? And it's got to ferment for a while. So you go through all this fasting and whatnot, and through a preparation of song, because you're going to encounter, this is all in the Mithraic liturgy, you're going to encounter certain forces. And this force will be this, and this is how you identify them, and this is what you say, this is what you speak, this is what you sing, and it's all, they're like hymns. And so it's kind of look what they did. They charted, they were like pioneers that charted the cosmos there, and out of it somehow brought healing to people.
Yeah, it was medicine. Medicine is in not just for the body though, for the body too. If you were sick or if you were dying or something like this, you could go and you could be healed, but also medicine for lethe, right? To the anamnesis, the unforgetting, the anamnoetic medicine.
Yes, you're throwing the gorgeous Greek around, right?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. It's coming from the nous, the mind. And that mind is what's behind the cosmos. That's how they described it anyway. Let me put it this way. The entire organization of the universe has a mind. And she is sexy, sexy, gorgeous. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh God, too many drugs. Those people are on way too many drugs, though. Right? For all the healing's sake. And Galen, by the way, for those of you who think we're just messing around, Galen, the physician of Marcus Aurelius, says Marcus Aurelius is looking better. He under the influence of the Theriac, right? And they're not telling people about this. He says, oh, but a couple of, who was it? The next emperor, not after Commodus, right? It became known that people were actually involved in preserving the Theriac within the imperial line. Because after all, these are Caesars, they are the offspring of ultimately of Aphrodite herself. And that's where the living dead girl gets real tissue. She gets real tissue. Okay, Numa from antiquity, right? Yeah, he's one of the original kings of Rome, blah, blah, blah. And he creates a set of books, right? Scrolls. And these scrolls become the base of Roman religion. All of the priesthoods, all of the sacrifices, that is the entheogens that we use in our fumigations, all of those are set up by this guy. Now, the story is he has a girlfriend who is constantly just pubescent, right? And the story about her is she's actually 1,000 years old, right? And some people say they do have intercourse. Some people say they don't, right? One thing we do know, though, is she dictates. She meets him in a very specific grotto, and she dictates to him the whole time these scrolls that ultimately become the religion of Rome. And what is gorgeous in all of that is that the people sit around debating things like, well, were they lovers? You know, just because we're curious, we want to know, were they lovers? They debate that kind of stuff like that, and they don't sit around and say, wait a minute, either these people are high, they'll believe anything, right? Or there's something going on with this oracular tradition. There's some kind of science tech that they've hit. They've hit some kind of vein. Now, they took some of these books that the oracles were writing. It wasn't just her. Her name was Egeria, right? And they made her the Muse of Rome, right? It wasn't just Egeria. There were other oracles who are performing and doing the exact same thing. And they are writing the future. Think about this for a minute. You have all sorts of genres of literature today. You don't have this.
No.
I'm going to give you a whole set of books about what is going to happen 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 300 years from now, 400, 5, 6, 7, right? And we're going to set out all these books. Well, the Romans decreed, hey, throw this stuff away, right? Conceal it, hide it, because it's going to cause bad things to happen. So they do. And every once in a while, they'll find them. Oh, they were buried at Numa's. The first time they hit Numa's tomb, boom, all these books came out. They consulted, oh God, what do we do with these things? What do we do? So they checked, and the future that was the present was so scary. They said, this can't get out, destroy them. Now, the question is, there was a priesthood of people who kept those books called the Quindecim Weary, right? And we don't have the books anymore. Some people say maybe the Vatican has them in their archive squirreled away. Who knows? Maybe they're in the Herculaneum library. I don't know, but we have one author who was a priest member of the group that was keeping these prophetic books. And he wrote an epic. He wrote an epic about Medea. And sandwiched within this epic are the oracles. You have to find the exact sorted translation of reality. That's the mission. Use your sortes and bring the reality when you're telling the future, right? And they had it down to such a science that Medea could give an oracle back in around 1000 to 1100 BC. She could give an oracle about 17 generations later that the priestess of Delphi could then hand down to the dude that Medea predicted would come for it, and instructions of what he was to go do. And it had to do with building civilization. And so the dudes would do it, go off and found a colony. Here we are. And the next thing you know, they've got civilization. So this is an ancient priestess who is spreading civilization through time, apparently with the ability to know exactly what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
right? What?
Yeah, this makes perfect sense from my own experience, because anyone who manages, either by being assisted or somehow by their own initiative or heroic in like precociousness, to get above time from up there, the whole linear thing is missing. It's just not there. It's all one moment that is like a living book that sings its soul into you, right? And then you sing like an instrument that's being played by that intelligence.
Isn't that gorgeous and sexy? Who?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to admit the universe, Urania, is absolutely fuckable. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like this is what you dreamed about when you were, you know, prepubescent, just coming into the world of awareness. And then you hit those junior high years and you're all dirty and lusty. And all of a sudden, the world of Aphrodite is coming into power. At that time, when you are most discriminatory, right? When those senses are hitting you for the first time and that euphoric ecstasy of her image is hitting you, that's what you want. You want the universe. You want the universe. It's like a crying out between lovers. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the Orphics said the origin is with Eros and
Oh yeah.
yeah, Eros and Ananke,
You know,
right?
it's so unfortunate, because when we are prepubescent and we are entering puberty and stuff, we're expecting to be reintroduced to the gods, and what's happening is we're getting reintroduced to like rap music, or being in the military,
Yeah.
or some vocational school, or like we're getting our soul's urge to develop and experience anamnesis is getting misdirected into bullshit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's tragic, because that's the time when older societies would initiate their children,
Yeah.
the mothers and the fathers, differently.
Right. And different cultures differently.
Yes,
Right.
it's not like there's one appropriate thing. The
Right.
humans are a vast they're like a topology of different worlds, right? So you
Yeah.
have to respect, I mean, you don't have to respect, but I have great appreciation for that incredible diversity, and how that is similar to what you see when you look up in the sky, right? You don't just see one star field, you see all these stars from all different distances in time, right? It's just like it's above time up there already. And the humans down here, we're so trapped in linear time in our thinking and expectations that that's part of what the lethe comes from,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The fact that I can't predict an eclipse really bothers me because that's like standard. They had that shit understood long time ago. What have I lost under my Western monist influencers? What have I lost that is human, like an understanding of what that is when you look up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I want to know what the ancients experienced when they looked at the night sky. This is one of my quests. I want to have that experience. I don't want the representational knowledge. I don't want the description, right? I don't want the explanation.
Yeah.
I want to experience their mind
Yeah.
firsthand. Does
You
the get
think you think of those Scythians, a horse culture. You're on horseback all day long, right? And then when it's time for you to hit the hay, there's no hay for you to hit. You form a circle and you create a fumigation pit. And everybody fumigates with cannabis. And then what is there to do? Because you haven't built buildings with stuff and your mobile culture, you don't do that. They're what we call gypsy maybe today.
Mhm.
More mobile culture, right? And just right in there with the horses, using all the horse products, everything. Oh God, having relationships with your horses that are like building those spirits that create the Greek world. And you're out there fumigating. They're fumigating with cannabis and looking up, talking about the constellations, right? There's got to be something, that connection with Uranos, with the, as the Greeks called it, and with Gaia. You know, you bring together those two, and boom, you're a human like you're supposed to be, right? Oh God, right? Makes me so excited. Yeah.
So I want to ask you some questions about your sense. You know, you seem like a kind of a, in some ways, very conflicted, because you have an ache for justice and the return of the Kora,
Yeah.
right? Talk to us about the Kora for a minute before I blather on.
Just queen of the underworld, baby. Think of her. And when you think of her, Korwa is a Mycenaean word. And it's a very specific, it's like saying virgin, but not in the type that is the Parthenos. This is the holy queen who is wedded. This is her wedding to the king of the underworld. This is what she is entering into. If you think from her perspective, because what is the Eleusinian mystery? We know this. They said it. They were allowed to say it. It's the resurrection, the visible resurrection of the Kora. It's her. Who is she? She is that prophetic oracle, right? Why do you think we want her in the first place, right? Remember, we're going to the underworld and coming back in this process. We're not going to stay. We're going to grab something and come back, right? And that thing that we grab is going to be perceived as by us as a new birth. You're going to feel like you've been born again. Something is different, right? So it, all of that stuff is only triggered by the Korwa. It is only triggered by the oracle, and that's why Egeria, they know this as far as Italy. That's why Egeria is working with Numa the king. Why isn't he writing his own goddamn laws, right? Because he is not that vessel. He is not that vessel. And the fact that they recognize that as a human potential to me is absolutely fantastic. Does it do what they say? Does the regimen make you younger? Is it an ambrosia that sustains an agelessness? And is it true that they were performing transfusions? And people say that in there. This is not only depicted in the text, it's depicted in the art. The art of the transfusion. And guess who is declared to be the inventor of this? Medea. And what is the purpose? You have to do it very carefully, because you can kill the person in the process. So you have to know exactly what you can put in. It's absolutely fantastic. It's gorgeous, and it is this kind of a tech that's divine. It's a kind of an art that is truly integrating the physical, the visible, and the invisible, right? Very, very much putting everything together for one vision. I love it. I love it.
The women are transmitting into the men like a spirit nectar that is both wisdom and medicine and protection from death and resurrection and healing and insight. They are pulsing it into the man in this vision, right?
Correct. And a direct support of what you just said can be found in Plutarch, who quotes a Spartan woman as saying, I think it was Plutarch, as saying, or maybe it was one of the lyric poets. No, this is one of the lyric poets who says, Athenian woman asked a Spartan woman, why is it that Spartan women have total power over their Spartan husbands? And her answer was, it's because only Spartan women produce men.
Right. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. Like, you were an organ in a woman's body Do you think
Yeah.
you have primacy over
Yeah.
her? Where did you
Right.
get that idea, right? Like,
Right.
what got messed
Right.
up in your brain sack that
Yeah.
led you, what were you feeling, insecure or
Yeah.
vulnerable or something?
Right.
So you had to make up
You-
stories about your supremacy over your
Right.
mother,
Or
right?
buy a
Like,
truck, buy a big truck. It doesn't matter. Whatever the
right,
compensation
exactly. Peacock
has to,
around,
has to
like inflate your importance some more. Go ahead, see how that works for you.
There are famous accounts of these Spartan women just to illustrate the Spartan character. And there are numerous accounts of mothers murdering their sons when they come back from battle if they don't have their shields or they have any marks on their backs.
Oh, I
For the
see. Yeah.
for the sake of Sparta, you are not a guardian, and boom, kill him.
Wow.
Can you believe what kind? Oh God, I know that woman is sexy, right? But what kind of place do you have to reach where you are that power that gives the true courage, gives that true martial spirit to your sons? You're the one passing it on, right? It's gorgeous. I love it. I love it. No wonder Lycurgus was right, wrote it in law in his reforms that the women have to be educated, right? When I read that for the first time, I was like, wait a minute. It makes sense now because they're just going off to war and the women have to run everything just like
Right.
they're running their marriages. And by the way, they don't all the time wear clothing that covers up their breasts. And if you have a problem with it, go fuck yourself. Right?
Right.
Oh God, such
No,
courage.
the Eros is everywhere, apparent and unhidden, and not seen as something to be denigrated or ashamed of or embarrassing. It's quite the opposite. Without that, what have you got?
Yeah, right.
What did you substitute for that
Yeah,
that you think is what? Pure, clean? What?
yeah.
What's your story? Right? What kind of fiction did you
Yeah.
insert to blind you to the power of the feminine Eros?
What kind of faith has compelled you to put on this burqa and to hide your natural beauty? I mean, think about that for a minute. It's so contrary to the worship of Aphrodite, right? Remember the Arabs, the Arabians, people that we're talking about living in the Arabian Peninsula. Those people are full of the worship of two gods, Bacchus and Aphrodite. And so it takes a lot to remove that Aphrodite, but when you do, you're left with a faith. Right? You're left with a faith. Thank you very much. Now we've got a faith, and we cut out that gorgeous, gorgeous feminine, which I think you would think would warp your mind after a while, don't you think? If you can't envision, like I'm being completely honest with you here, it
Hmm.
was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to hear something feminine whenever I say God. Whenever I say God, it took me a long time. I wanted to insist. No, it's masculine. It's masculine. It's got to be masculine, right? And then I saw an ancient Greek text that used a masculine form to refer to Aphrodite. And it was like my mind was free. And I was like, oh, I get it. They can hear it that we can't because some jackasses kicked the shit out of our tech. And now we can't join. We're prisoners, right? We're farmed, dude. I totally understand when people say, we're farmed. We're part of a process of farming. This stuff has been taken out of your life. It's been taken out of your programming. You were supposed to be exposed to all these mushrooms and grass and stuff coming out of trees. They even used in antiquity, like you bruise a tree intentionally, and then you take all the sap that comes out of the tree. Oh God, you'd love that stuff. Put it in anything you drink, And after a few weeks, oh, your stomach will work better, you dumbass, and you'll feel better. Right? Oh God, what happened to that world? Oh, you got something there from a tree or something, right?
Yeah, this is pollen from my tree, right?
Nice.
And when I'm doing things, I use the pollen, right? It's its reproductive essence. Yeah, it's pollen, right?
Love
It's
it.
the spirit of the tree's, sex. Yeah,
Yeah,
straight up.
you're a tree molester,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's me. Yeah, I go around molesting trees.
You've heard of tree huggers. This
Yeah,
guy,
no, I
this
take it
guy's
to a
got
whole other
the
level.
pollen. This guy's got jars of pollen. You know, the tree vice squad is gonna break in. As soon as they figure out how to move, they're gonna break in, they're gonna arrest you, and they're gonna use all that pollen as, as evidence. It's anti-inflammatory, isn't it, or something?
I mean, it's very complex. Like, it I don't use, there's things you can use sap for. I use sap too,
Yeah.
right? Like what you're talking about. These
Yeah.
are things that I discovered by talking to trees, not by talking to humans,
Oh,
right?
fantastic.
So, go to the source,
Yeah.
you know.
Direct connection.
It's one of the reasons why I spend most of my time talking with women. There
Yeah.
are unusual men, but the men mostly they're inclined to kind of peacock and stuff. Even
Yeah.
myself, right? I have the same problem. I'm a
Yeah.
man. But
Yeah.
the women, man, that the water of their heartful wisdom is just, I want to preserve it and sing its praises and protect it and
Yeah.
adore it. I'm made for that. Okay,
Yeah.
I got some other questions here though that I want to
Of
get to. And I'm hoping that we'll get to have another few conversations at least over time.
course, of course.
Okay, right on. So we don't have to get to everything today, but I want to know, was he doing the rituals in the PGM?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it would be a, a shame if I were to say that he were.
Okay.
To his family, it would be an absolute shame. No, Dr. Scarborough was a straight up history of medicine scholar. And that's why he got chosen to do the medicine of the PGM and to translate it and whatnot. No, absolutely not. So the
Okay.
answer to that is no.
Okay. And as far as, so I appreciate that answer. That makes sense to me. And what you're saying is, he was a scholar and an academic and one who studies the language and translating it and the histories and things like this.
Yeah, he was not a classical philologist. He was a medical historian. So he used Greek. Of course, he had to learn Greek in the process. And he used Greek in order to get just to the medical sources. So like he didn't have to read Homer and Plato and Penn. He did end up reading a whole bunch, right? Over time. But his real strength was the fact that he was burrowing into the medical text and nobody had done that. And he had a little medical background too. So I think he went to medical school for a year, maybe two, when he decided to transfer over. Also, he has like Byzantine studies. He did a master's in Byzantine studies, and nobody does that late. Classicists tend to stop like the 3rd century, Anno Domini, 4th century, maybe they'll go that far. Anything after that, they don't want to get involved. So all of the great doctors like Oribasius, right, who are not part of that, they're not one of the early ones, like, it's not Dioscorides, so people hadn't been jumping into it. Dr. Scarborough, to his credit, he did. He jumped into it, and he did all the Byzantine docs. And there's a whole bunch of Christing there. He didn't know that. I mean, he knew it, but he didn't know it would become an issue, right? The Christing thing. So he was a good scholar. He's a very good scholar.
When did you first begin experimenting with actual magical practice?
Oh,
Since it's obvious you have.
Yeah. Over time, just enjoying the Muse, I would say that there were numerous things that you could claim were magical, but I didn't really get um I didn't really approach it as a kind of a scientific, inquiry until I was working on the play, the Medea, and I
Ah.
come across a couple of incantations that were of the incubus, and that's really when I said, okay, I'm gonna really push the border here and see, if I can reproduce it. So when the event, happened, and the next day somebody said, oh my God, this person is claiming that X, Y, and Z happened. And it was an exact narrative of what I had done,
Hmm.
uh, from a distance,
Hmm.
right? Then it's a positive exam. It was at that point that I was like, oh, wow. Wow, right? And it was from that point forward that I get all the emails bombarding me. People saying, you're having intercourse with me in my dreams. I get that. It's like a genre now. And so now I get it so much, I'm at the point of saying, um, how was it? You know,
Right.
right? Right? It has to be, maybe it was a good experience. And some people volunteer and tell me that I saw you, and you were a goat, and you strangled me.
Okay. I get it. Wow.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So what can you do? I mean,
I mean, that's different though, because so look, you are something of a psychopomp, and
a
the
psycho what?
a psychopomp,
I
right?
resent
A hierophant. This is what priests mimic,
yeah.
right? But you're like the actual thing. So when people encounter you, right, it's like you are pulsing like a drum, right? And their
Yeah.
psyche receives those pulses, and then at night they dream, and those pulses take form in their awareness,
Yeah.
right? So it's not necessarily the same thing as you did the incubus, right? And then something happened. It's not the same, right?
Well, like I said, that
Hmm.
first trip really showed me how it could be done.
Hmm.
And imagine that you discovered something like this. Wouldn't you wouldn't you take it to its nth degree? Wouldn't you? You know what I mean? No,
Okay.
I'm serious.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? Because I was so taken aback by the fact that those results were exactly what I had done in the performance, even to the point of thought, just as I was envisioning this thought just in my head. There she is. It's a roommate. Oh God, I've got to paralyze this person. Her description of my paralysis, my incubus paralysis, was gorgeous. It was right on. I wish it could be preserved. If she hadn't gone nuts, it would have been great to preserve it, right? There's a capacity here that is feared. And it's the reason that people get kicked out of institutions. It's the reason that people get written off. It's a reason that you sustain the current faith narrative, right? Somebody's got to come along. Some Pythagoras has to come along and has to poke a big hole in your universe in order for you to go there. That's what you're talking about in your experiences, right? Those are divine experiences, and that has to take place. Until it does, guess what? You're bound for lethe. You're just going to keep going and drinking the lethe until what happens? What if you never purge that corruption? What if you believe lies for an eternity? Right? What happens to those living souls? Right? Oh God, this is the kinds of thing that I'm glad that this new renaissance of the understanding that drugs go hand in hand with life and beauty and intelligence and some kind of martial triumph where the beautiful overcomes the ugly.
Mm.
Right? Oh God, it's gorgeous. It's like that invisible muse. It's like she has you can tell her themes that she likes in her stories. If you just look at your life as her story, what has she told? What are the themes that have run through it? And there's certain things that she really likes. And that whole Eros, that whole love. I don't know, when you describe you being in that place, right? I get it. I kind of get Addis and Mother Sibylle. I kind of get what they were
Hmm.
doing, you know?
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think about all those mystery religions? Are they reaching for the same beauty? What are they doing?
You know, one of the problems that we have as humans is we want to encompass something in language, and that can be useful. Like look, I love books. I'm a book, I'm a book guy. And I'm really curious about all the books on your shelves. Maybe you'll send me a photograph so I can see what's on there sometime.
Yeah.
And I was also hoping in the future maybe you might do some bibliomancy, but let me respond to what you said. There's some things, if I were smart, if I were actually wise, what I would have done during my experience was write nothing and say nothing and stay fucking pregnant. Stay pregnant. Right? That's what I would try to do in the future, because they were pouring something into me and I was transforming it into language, but that fails in a certain way, right? Some things are meant to be silently undergone, and you are fertilized and you are transformed, but you don't let it out, right? You don't speak it.
There's actually a form of necromancy, or a form of activating the sortes that they call is invoking Takita on the Roman side. Takita, who's the goddess of silence, right? There's a communication. All of these magical forms that they're doing, all of this liturgy, this is oral stuff, and the song is a big part of the whole process. So they recognize that you can, I don't know, switch the polarity. I don't know how you switch over to the silent oracle, right? And for some reason, that's supposed to give you a more direct, it's like, what is it, like a secure connection or something? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't understand it. But the dance that they do is incredible. So there's a direct link with that silence. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the monks figured something out too with all that. With
All
the,
I'm trying to say is that we moderns, we have a problem. And the problem is that once we have a name for something, we think we know what it is. Let me be
yeah,
really
true.
clear. That's not knowledge. That's something different.
Yeah,
Knowledge is when you've tasted her mouth,
yeah. You know who
right?
you are, right?
Right. Yeah. Knowledge is
Uh,
intimacy. It's
yeah.
not that you have a word for things or now you have an explanation. That's a different thing. That's an aspect of knowledge, but I'm starving for the other stuff. I want the direct intimacy of the experience.
You want the devil, man. That's what you want. Because, you know, Adam knew his wife. And the question is, did the devil know? Did the
Eve.
devil know? Yeah. Did he
Right.
know?
Well, they had
Some
two
people say
children.
Cain. Yeah. Some people say Cain was his. And
Right.
there are apocryphal texts that talk about the devil scraping. I don't know if you've seen these. The devil scraping his armpits and putting it into Eve's drink. And why was he doing that? Because he wanted her to fall for him alone.
Mm.
Isn't that something? It's like a love. He's
But it's obvious to me, Amin, that the stories in Genesis, they did not arise with those people. Those stories come from elsewhere. It seems pretty obvious to me.
yeah, people say it's reflecting its Hebrew origin or its Middle Eastern origins, and they'll compare it with Gilgamesh and stuff like that. I still can't get by the very opening of Genesis and how technically advanced it is. And there's nothing coming out of their languages that's even close to that. We have to, let me put it this way, we have to try to figure out how they built stuff.
Yeah.
right? We have to try to figure it out. Do we have to try to figure out how the Greeks built stuff? No, because they coined the term grammar and they created a language that could express how things were grown and or built. And I was just looking the other day, I was reading, I think it was Philostratus and his Imagines, and he's talking about the great wonders of the world. And he says, you know what? Everybody talks about these wonders. And I'm like, oh, dude, he's going to say something really radical. Right. And he says, I've seen this, I've seen that, I've seen the pyramids, and I have seen the temple of Diana at Ephesus. And I can tell you for a fact, there is nothing more heavenly, more beautiful, and more perfect than the temple of Diana. Makes those pyramids look like junk. People, think about it. What do you want to build? Giant heaps of rock, right? What are we going to make it? It's going to contain the sarcophagus of the pharaoh, right? And then everybody makes up their magic. But fuck that. Look at the temple of Diana, dude. Look at it. Artemis of Ephesus. Oh my God. Oh my God. Just the proportions, dude. I don't care about a stack of rocks. I want to see some columns that remind me of a woman's figure. That's what I want to see. And you know what they did? They brought it right out of the stone. They've got ladies standing there, right? Columns. They're making columns into women with sheer clothing that you can see through. It's like a mirage in stone. Right? Okay, you can either have that or you can have some big piles of rocks. There's nothing you can do with a pyramid besides look at it, right? Oh God.
Yeah, well, I applaud your active veneration of the feminine and Eros in all of her glorious expression. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
It's a compensation for Christianity, right? We've got to bring her back to stop the monism. That's their weakness. Love it. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. What do you
I
think
I
about
am
talking to Bob Larson? Do you think that's a productive avenue?
I don't know him yet. I heard you mention his name. We can discuss this.
Just check him out. I'd love your opinion because he goes way back in Arizona. I used to listen to him when I was a Baptist, and he is a caster out of demons. Now he did say that I have demons, and when I told him to shove his holy oil, he didn't take it all that well. But in the episode, he does actually anoint. He anoints a little statue that Danny has there of a god that you're supposed to put semen and blood into this offering, and he has a little phallus that he's got going. And Bob he zeroed in on it when he came in the room. He zeroed in on it. It was like, oh, that thing's got to get blessed. I don't know. I think he just wanted to touch it. I don't know.
Well, you're sort of the opposite of I heard you use the phrase exorcist killer, but you're kind of the opposite of an exorcist. And I was trying to think of a word for that. And it's like an introitist.
Yeah.
Bring them in, right? You invite them in,
Yeah.
right? Instead of pushing them out, you call them in. Right?
Yeah. 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 I guess there should be a name for it.
Yeah. I mean, invocation is the common word for it, but right, to bring the beings within yourself.
They used to use that too. That has a beautiful history. To invoke in classical Roman religion was to go to a city that you're about to take over, and you bribe the gods to come with you back to Rome. And that if they will assist you, you'll get all of their stuff and you can forget this podunk shitville. You'll be in Rome on one of the 7 hills, baby.
Right.
Right. And why were they doing that? They were moving the divine powers. Again, these are people whose traditions are able to see the invisible.
Yeah.
And they're coming up with prophetesses who are telling the future. So this is, the danger of revealing what is in the oracles was not that Rome would collapse. Right. It wasn't
No, it
that.
was that the polis would be terrified.
It was the danger of exploiting the glory, of bringing it to its ultimate rallying point where it just smashed the rest of the world. It was
Ah,
a terrific ending, and they didn't want that to be in the common imagination. It was the apocalypse. And um, how do you ignore the fact that the apocalypse of John is using the very same vocabulary that these oracles are using? How do you ignore that kind of thing? You can't, man. You can't ignore those traditions. They're harnessing the same mystery power, and they're
yeah.
talking about it. I love it. If you're one thing I like to say that people, it pisses them off, and that's why I like to say it, but it's a reality. If you have not participated in a death and resurrection episode, you have not become any sort of redeemed Christian. No, you have not. You have just followed some kind of faith that's allowed to convince you to think that you were. But if you have not truly been born again, according to the mysteries themselves, you're doomed to lethe. You're doomed to lethe. Enjoy, right?
Mm.
Because it's like Cicero pre and post, pre initiation, post initiation, right? You didn't make it to the post. Sorry,
Yeah.
you get funneled back in to the system. You need some more punishment, right? Apparently, you didn't learn your lesson, right? Praise Jesus, the Christ. And by the way, the Christ is a sex drug. Welcome. Welcome. Do you mean that true mystery religion that's cosmic and that has this power that you can describe as magic or whatever you want to describe it, this mind altering power? You mean this religion is linked to a unity in sexual intercourse that is meant to bring you to life? Oh, think about that for a minute. It sounds natural, like that's how it should be. No, no,
It's
no.
not a
Let's all
radical.
believe the guy on the clouds who's going to come back and screw us all. Right? Let's follow him instead. We don't care how much he lies. Right? He was arrested with a naked boy. We don't care. Right? Oh, some people, they do wrong things, but they do it for the reason we want to do it. That's maggoted brain is what that is. And unfortunately, that's our era. I think we're the era of maggoted brain.
So there's nothing particularly radical about your demand for the reintroduction of Eros. The women who I speak with, they're all, I mean, I'm gonna in just a few minutes, I'm gonna be interviewing Dr. Joanna Kujawa, who studied this for her entire life and career and has had her own, non-ordinary experiences around this. It's not radical. It's only radical in the face of Christianity and Islam. And even in, again, like if we got past the surface of those monotheistic religions, we would find Eros underneath. And if the surface is sustained, then what you get is kind of perversion, right? Then you get a problem because what they've done is they've sort of made kind of the wrapping paper of lies on the surface, and so the Eros has to bubble up from underneath, right? Somehow you
Which it
can't
will
actually
always do.
you
It will
can't evict
always do
it.
it.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it. How are you going to get rid of it? So what's going to happen is it'll warp, right? It'll warp underneath those taboos.
Yeah. It's too bad the Egyptians were smart enough to get rid of it within a generation,
Mm.
right? Otherwise, it would have completely altered Egyptian history, that monism.
Mhm.
Just like it the monism that spread in the West altered Roman history. Yeah, I love it. And you know, there are people out there who were saying these very things, and they happen to be pagan mystagogues like Julian the Apostate, right? Have you ever read Julian's work on the Great Mother?
No, I hope to.
Oh God, you'll love it. You'll love it. It gives you a whole new understanding just to hear it from their breath. And he was actually involved in a rite of Hecate that was, you know, he was trying to bring back the mystagoguery. He was trying to bring back the vision. And one of those ways of doing it was the motivation of the stone, right? To get the stone representation of the deity to move and speak, right? And he was involved in this. Remember, they're using all sorts of kinds of incantations that involve all sorts of kinds of drugs. So, but reportedly, these fumigations, reportedly, it worked, and they got the stone to speak, right? That guy Julian is the guy who's warning everybody else. The monists are going, the Christians are going to take over. And when they do, they're going to destroy all of this knowledge that we have in the libraries. Guess what they did? Guess what they did? And so he tried to stop them by saying Christians can no longer teach, but they murdered him like a year later. So, you know, that's the way it is. I don't know if you noticed it. I was in that interview with Danny. They said, the one that just came out, we were looking at the Talmud with the passage, the famous passage about the infants having intercourse with infants. And one of the passages that I noticed that was above it that they were looking at said, let anybody who interferes in reading these scriptures or whatever it was, let them to be guilty of a crime of death, punishable by death. Right? Do you see what happens with the flow of information? It's control. Its control is directly the stuff you're talking about that, you know, you'd think would be like spiritual and exempt from control. It's not. It's not. The demon possession, the fact that they're taking people who are melancholics, that are depressed, and Galen is openly prescribing drug treatments for those possessions. In one case, recommending the joining with a priestess, right? Which kind of makes sense if you're depressed. If I was when I was a kid, when I was going through depressive mood swings and stuff like that, if I'd had a priestess that I could have spent, you know, some time with, you know what I mean? Jesus, I probably would have been happier too.
Yeah.
You know, damn.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Ammon, I'm going to have to go because I have another interview to do today.
Yes.
But I am absolutely enthusiastic about your work and the chance to speak with you and learn together and see through some of the veils of nonsense of modernity and history.
Yeah. Oh God.
Absolutely love it, man.
I love the conversation today. I'm so glad that it was a conversation and not just tell me this and tell me this and tell me this and tell me this. I really would rather interact with you than sit here and, you know, try to, I don't know, throw out some lecture bullshit. So thank you. This is a good interview. And by the way, just to let your audience know, you have totally, in that article that you wrote, you have totally captured the situation. You did your research and it was straight up. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'll let you get to your interview.
That was an absolute joy for me. And I, you know, your presence and your spirit, your virtue, your ethos, it is anamnoetic, right? It is catalytic.
Oh, I love that.
It's unforgetting, right? And just deep respect and appreciation for that, brother. So
Anamnesis. That's what we need a prescription for.
Yeah.
God, I love it.
Let's make the medicine together.
Yes, exactly. Look, exactly. Oh my God, it's breaking. The Renaissance is coming. Okay, get to your Maria Gambudis, right?
I interviewed Maria Marigu. But today I'm
Thank
going to
you.
be talking with Dr. Joanna Kuyawa.
Oh, Kuyawa. It's Dr. Kuyawa. Yeah, I've heard her name frequently. So
Awesome.
enjoy. Have fun.
Yes, again, very soon, my friend. And thank you to you and to Chewy and to the dead girl and the beings that inform your spirit. All respect.
Definitely to the dead girl.
The
Definitely.
muse. Yes.
Love
Sing.
it. Oh, I love it.
Sing.
So beautiful. Okay. Have a good one and enjoy your next interview.
Again soon.